what we left off yesterday. So yesterday we tried to do a backup. Did anybody had a chance to able to restore from the backup and you got it working? Anybody? Did I try that? Restore from the backup? Okay, seems like nobody tried that. So, okay, if you guys had a chance sometime, you can try it. So not just backing up, but I wanted to make sure that you can restore from the backup. It'd be important. If we back up and we can't restore, there's no point of backing up. All right? But today, we are going to do the disaster recovery, which is important, right? So as an organization, we should have some type of plan associated to make sure that if we have a disaster, what is the plan to back up? And in order to that, we want to make sure that you also set up a recovery plan. And recovery plan also, we don't have to wait till we had a disaster. So every 3 months or every month, it depends on your organization, you should have a schedule failover, which means that we are going to go shut it down on one site and make sure that it's going to fail over to the other site. So of course, when we're doing a site recovery, our goal is what? Our goal is we have to make sure that you are associated with two different sites. Means we're talking two different locations that your data is in. So let's say if we have a VM in East US data center, we wanted to make sure that we have our data also in West US, a different region, right? So disaster recovery, we talked about it. Let's say in East. You guys saw that East US. We have East US and East US 2. So in East US, we have two different data centers. But normally, the disaster recovery is for two things, either weather situation or physical, something happened to the machine. So to cover both of them, I'd highly recommend that you're not going to recover from East US to East US 2. You most likely want to cover, if your data center, you have your primaries in East US, that you are going to recover in West US. Because if they have a weather situation, normally it'll be the entire East or the entire West. It would be, not the whole country, right? So think about the disaster recovery up front before we build it, and make sure that you are considering the business continuity and disaster recovery strategy, because the goal is to keep the business up and running no matter what. So you also have to make sure that having unplanned outages because we don't want to wait till we have unplanned outage. We want to plan the outage to see if your disaster recovery is working. So we can kind of set up the scenarios to make sure that if there is a disaster, how we're going to recover. And are we just going to recover, normally you want to recover the entire site, or do you want to recover a specific VM? Because this particular module is about a VM. We are going to show you how you can replicate a VM to a different Azure region. So we make sure that you have, we're setting up similarly to a failover like we have on premises, right? On-prem, most organizations that, I just set up for H&R Block. H&R Block has, of course, many locations throughout the entire United States. So we want to set a replication, and because we're in East US, which I'm in Florida, so we wanted to replicate to West US. So that's what the plan is. That's the goal is. So the goal is not only setting up the recovery, I want you guys to make sure you have some type of planned outages and make sure that your disaster recovery is working. So not like, okay, well, the first time we set up, we know everything is working, we're going to go away. Not that. You need to have the continuously testing it to make sure that your disaster recovery is working, okay? So when we're talking about business continuity, we set up two different things. We have site recovery and a backup service. And so backup service also, I want you to make it clear, because people ask me, okay, we already have a backup. We have a backup data. Why do we need to have site recovery? site recovery is a failover, which is very different from backup. Site recovery means that you are going to automatically fail over to that particular site. You don't have to personally even do that. When you do a backup, you know as well as I do, backup means that if something goes down, you're restoring from that backup. When you're restoring, you have a downtime. So it's a question to to your organization that can you afford downtime or not? So site recovery is to make sure that you have no downtime. If you're doing a backup from restore, it's for downtime. So normally the way that I looked at it is that site recovery is for the entire machine, entire VM, and everything on the VM. Now, backup is, the backup that we tested, we did the other day, we did yesterday. You can see backup is normally if accidentally somebody deleted a file and they want it back. That's very commonly happened. So that type of situation, backup is better. However, if you have a weather situation and your entire site goes down, recovery is better. So they both exist and they both are important because they both have their own purpose why we need to do site recovery as well as backup. So you need to set up a simple BCDR solution, business continuity solution. We need to make sure that sometimes also is that when you're doing site recovery, you might not need to recover every VM. You're going to only recover the most important VM. If some of the VM you're testing as a test VM that the developers are using, you might not need to set that. You might not need to include it. So before we do the replication, you got to decide which VM is important that must be replicated. Okay, and we can replicate it from on-premises to Azure, vice versa from Azure to on-premises. We can also replicate a workload. We can also replicate data only as well. So we have a different type of targets. We can keep a consistent failover. Testing without disruption. So that's what disaster, because we want to test it without disruption. We need to make sure that your failover is designed to be flexible enough. And you need to be able to customize a recovery plan as needed. As your business grows, and you need to add more VM and all that kind of stuff to your failover strategy. You need to be able to do that, without minimum effort, right? So we'll talk about BCDR integration, how Azure automation you can integrate it, and also your network integration. So all the time people ask, what can I replicate? We can replicate a scenario. We can replicate the entire region. We can replicate a machine. We can also replicate a particular workload if you're doing any type of app development. So for this particular, of course, we're not going to replicate the entire region, entire site. We're going to try to recover one VM because it's time consuming. Right. So we are contributing to a disaster recovery service. We are using site recovery service. And we will just, you can decide again what VM, what virtual machine your main application is running that you cannot live without it. So to do that, we are going to create a recovery services vault. So the services vault is what the recovery is going to go into, and we're going to serve vault key and all that stuff. So main goal is let's say you have a VM in East US, and so your service vault should be in West US or even in Europe or Asia or Canada, wherever you want to create. But the recovery services vault, rule of thumb, you don't want to put it in the same location. So a lot of times it's, well, I have my data in East US location. Can I put a recovery services vault in East US too? You can. However, it doesn't make sense because the goal is if something, where the situation happened in East, you want to recover your data in a different location. So that's what I would recommend, that we will create a VM in East US, and we will recover that East US VM in West US. That's what our lab we're going to do. So again, I'm going to repeat. We're going to create a VM today. That VM, we're going to create it in East US or Central US, and we're going to recover it in West US. So where the VM is sitting, whatever region that VM is sitting, your services vault must be in a different region. It makes sense, right? The source, if your source data you wanted to replicate is in West US, you wanted the replication data, which is going to put inside the services vault, should be in East US or other region, okay? So we have a source. So the source region, that's where we go to. Pretty much replication is what you copy. So you have to have a source and a target. The source and target needs to be in two separate regions. We need to also set up outbound rules about access to make sure that the VM has permission to go out of their region, go outside to the internet. And replication is very interesting because you can set up a replication, but unless you enable the replication does not come on live, all right? So let's try to go into and create the VM. We're going to create the VM first, and again, we'll do it step by step together, and then we will create the source first, the source VM. We'll replicate it to a target services vault. Okay, so that's our goal. Let's pull up to see if you guys have that document that is going to tell us. So here's the document. I'm going to walk through it first to make sure we're all on the same page before we go in. So of course we're going into Azure portal. We're going to type in the search box. We're going to type in the recovery services. I think I have mine up. So when we're talking search box, we're talking up here in the search box here, if you're still looking at my screen. So that's where we're going to type in recovery services. We are going to select backup and site recovery, OMS. And once we have that window, we're going to select create. So when we select create, okay, so a name, I did not, because we have so many VM now, I'm not mandating what VMs you should name, but whatever VM name, you must remember that name, as you know. Create a resource group. You can use a select existing one, so we don't have to create another resource group. But if you want to create another one, that's fine too. However you want to do, make sure you have it. So once we create, first we need to create a VM. Before we go in here, we're going to create a one VM that we're going to recover. This is going in to create a services vault. So in the services vault, that's where your replication going. So the services vault, of course, you can name the services vault. The same thing that we have any name, the 12 to 72 characters, all that, no special characters. Use the same subscription you're using. Now you are going to use a different resource group that you go to replicate to. So the vault is sitting in West US. So if we create the VM has to be in East US or something before we go in and create the vault, and make sure that, again, they are in two different regions. So recovery services vault is your target, and the VM that you want to replicate, that is your source. The source and the target must be in two different regions. Okay. Now, once we have the new recovery services vault, like I said, we have to enable the replication. So this is where we go in and vault, and we're going to enable it, and then we're going to replicate it. We're going to go through this together. I wanted to make sure everyone had a chance to do it, so stay with me. And even though you already know how to do this, but for this particular demo, we're going to go slow, but please stay with me. So here, the source, they're telling that in this case, they're putting the source is West US, then they're putting target. But in our case, we want to put the source in East US and the target in a different location. So as you can see, the source configure, so you're going to see where the source machine is. We are going to use, for the deployment model, for the virtual machine deployment model, we are using Resource Manager. And where that subscription, where the subscription should be, where's your resource group. Now, then we go and open the VM that we created that we wanted to be replicate. So when we are in the recovery services vault, you're going to tell what machine you want to replicate. We go on to to the settings in the site recovery setting, policy for target region, and customize to resource group, network storage, availability, and then you tell what the target location is. We go to customize the target as summarized in that table. So this is just talking about different, these are all the parameters in the setting. You got target subscription, target location, target source group, target virtual network, cache storage if you're going to use cache, if you're doing any firewall enabled cache, storage accounts, all that stuff, replica managed disk, target availability set if you also have availability set in for the target. And if you do that target availability zone, which we're not doing those that. We're just going to do a simple replication. And in the customized replication policy, we have a policy name, recovery point retention, how long you want to keep this replication. So you have it between 1 and 72 hours. After 72 hours, you will not be able to access your recoveries, not access the data in your vault. So it's very important if you're not going to have a recovery within 1 and 72 hours, you can move that data out of there and put it in storage or somewhere. But if it's sitting in the recovery vault, it will only stay there for 72 hours. And that app consistent snapshots are even smaller, 1 and 12 hours. We have replication group. Now, depends on how your organization is doing, and we say yes to multi-VM consistency and renew existing replication group, then okay. Once we have the vault set up, now we have to configure encryption setting. This encryption key vault, so Site Recovery creates a new key vault for that source VM disk encryption with that ASR suffix. That's by default. Already exists, it will reuse that but it will use that key vault. It will use that key again. So in order to access that recovery data, you need to make sure you have a key vault, and the key vault is encrypted. So somebody cannot get into our replication is what we're trying to do. Then we can select a custom key vault, track replication status, and if you can see the replication, then we're good. That means that we have a replication data that's sitting for us. All right, so that's all what we're going to go do. So who's excited to do this lab? Anybody? Everybody? Nobody? Okay. Can't get you guys excited of anything, huh? Or just that me. So we are, I need a couple of minutes for you guys to log into the portal. Make sure you open up the file. I know I print this out. Site recovery. That's implement and manage storage. Just give me 1 second. I am trying to. And this morning I kind of lost my internet and I kind of panicked. All right, so I don't know what I moved my stuff, but hopefully we got it here together. Okay, so I am going to, 1 second. Give me 1 second. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I'm going to go look for a file that we all can use. I'll upload it for you guys as well here. Azure. I go into the 101. The AC 101, 0102. All right, so I'm going to try to upload the files here. So, okay, I'm uploading that file. Then I need to upload these in the one. Okay, close it. So I'm uploading more files into the Skype. So hopefully you guys able to see that. I'm sorry I didn't have time to zip it, so it will be a little bit of 101, 100, 101, and 102. Is that 100? 01? No, 101, 01. Okay. Okay, that's fine. 101, 01. We got those. Okay.
Hey, Maya, are you sharing something?
I'm not sharing. I'm uploading the files. Sorry.
Oh,
Yep. So I'm uploading the files into Skype. So give it a second, please. Left, not the left. 10101. Okay, so there is no 10102. All right, so can you guys download those files? I'm sorry, I had a change of plan. So what you should have is, I'll share my files in a minute, screen in a minute. So we are going to, you're going to see EZ 101-01 files, which are the JSON files. So make sure you copy the file extension as JSON files. And somebody put it up to share to the people who do not have access to Skype, who's logging in as a phone. Okay. I will share my screen in a second. I just want to make sure, because we have those. Again, instructions. I don't think I shared this file yet. ESR between regions. Did I do that? Okay, I did. All right. So the .md file on there, the implement ESR between regions, that you can open it in Word or Notepad. Okay. Okay, so let's get the files, and I am going to share my screen again. I'm going to print it out first. I have it printed out. 5 pages. Okay, so what we want to make sure is you have the associated file as well as you have this. So we need to make sure you have this implement ASR between regions AZ101-01 file as well as these associated files. So there's a bunch of files I uploaded to Skype. Can you guys make sure you have the instruction as well as the associated file we're going to need to copy into Azure. So let's take a couple of minutes to get that working. Anybody can confirm that you're able to download Brandy here or Pradeep or Ganga? Can you
Yes,
guys?
I can get the files.
But can you share with other people though? Because I know some people can't get into Skype. And they can't see the download.
Okay.
Were you guys able to share it with the rest of the team?
Yeah, I'll put it on our internal site here shortly.
Okay. All right. So I'll take a couple minutes. I'm going to go grab my printer and paper. Grab that. I am back, and I hope everybody got the file yet. Because it'll be very hard to follow without the files. Plus, we need those JSON files. Can anyone confirm that you guys got the file and you're ready to start the lab? Pradeep, you good?
I have the files. I'm good.
But do we, everybody else, thanks, Pradeep. Anybody else has the file too?
Yeah, we have the files.
Everybody has the file? Okay. So the first thing we're going to do here, and I'm going to show the document and we'll go through it together. So we're going to need these two files, the two JSON files, which I uploaded, so you guys should have the JSON files. So our objective is, we know that, right? We're going to implement an Azure Site Recovery Vault, and we're going to create a replication between the two VM. Remember the VM, we are going to have a source VM and a target VM, and they both need to be in two different regions, okay? So the first exercise we're going to do, so we're going to deploy a VM to migrate it by using an Azure Resource Manager template, and we are going to create Azure Resource Recovery Services Vault. All right, so the first lab before we go into the portal, and this is, we're going into creating a little different than we created before. But before we do that, I'm going to create a resource group. And that just means I want to make sure for this particular one, I have a separate resource so I don't confuse myself. So So I'm creating, if you want to use the existing one, you're okay. If not, let's go ahead and create a new resource group. So I am creating a resource group. Remember I'm going to put a VM in that resource group. So you need to make sure that you choose two different sites, so think of it in the back of your mind. But for now we need to make sure where you want to create your resource group. In my case, I'm just going to keep it Central US. So I know that when I create the vault, the target has to be a different region. All right, so I am going to create it in a Central US. That's my resource group. Review and create. We create resource group many times, so this should be a piece of cake for you guys. And let's the resource group create it. So see, resource group came back pretty quick. I got nothing in this resource group yet. So the first thing we did is create the resource group, and if you don't want to create, you don't have to, but I wanted to make sure I have a separate resource group, and my resource group is in Central US. So which means when we create the VM needs to be in the same. All right. So the first thing we're going to go into the portal, and we've been doing that create a resource. In the new market blade, we are going to type template deployment. In that case, I'm copying. So first, I am going back into the portal. We've been clicking create a resource many times already, but this time in the new search box template, I am going to select template deployment. So when I type it in, or I copy and paste, I cheated and put it in. So when I copy and paste it, now I am sitting in the template deployment. Everybody with me on that? And this first time we created template deployment, I want to make sure we go slow and make sure that you guys are all on the same page as me, because this is a different object we're creating. We haven't created this before. Are we all good? Everybody able to find the template deployment? Because it'll be very hard to continue the lab if you cannot find it. Pradeep, are you good?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Maharsh, you good? Mahesh or Maharsh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so we're going to click create. Now, I'm also pointing key back to the document, because you're going to have a document with you, all the time, and I want you guys to be able to follow the document and do it yourself as well. So this one, this time in that list, we are going to select deploy a custom template. So this is a build your own template in the editor. So that's what we are going to choose. That's where we are here. So here we are going to custom deployment blade. We're going to select build your own template. Okay, everybody find the build your own template. That's the second on the top. Under learn about template deployment. This is the second one. Build your own template in the editor. So that's what we're selecting. Okay. Now here, once we're here, you see you have quick start template. You can add the source, load the file, download. We are going to load the file, but before we go there, I want to make sure we are going to load this file, which is 101.01. This is a file I uploaded for you guys, so make sure you have this file, 101-01 Azure deploy.json file. And you know where that file is. So your location may be different than mine, because I don't know where you save it. But we need to make sure we're going to go get that file. Everybody's able to locate that file? You know where you copy this file, right? That's the one. That's one of the file I uploaded just a minute ago. So you guys have it? Yes. Make sure you know where the file is. Okay, so we're going to click load the file. This was one thing I wanted to make sure. So we are going to load the file. I need to make sure that we're loading the right file. Give me 1 second. I just want to make sure I'm loading the right file here. AC10101. And also even in the Azure deploy, we have Azure deploy and Azure deploy dot parameters. You got to be very careful that, and also we don't want 01B, so we want AC10101 Azure deploy. That's the JSON file we wanted to upload. Okay, because there's a lot of similarity files out there. I wanted to make sure we have the right one. It is AC10101 Azure deploy. So now let's go and look at that file. Okay, so if you scroll down on the file and you see these different blocks, what block that we are interested to be looking, so you can kind of see the different blocks that we have here. So this is a template that you're bringing in. It's telling us what the default value is. So the default value is creating AZ10101 VM for us. That's going to create that. It's going to create that VM and have all these Windows Server. Notice that in the image SKU block, this is the block I'm talking, notice that it is installing 2016 Data Center Server Core for this VM, the AZ10101 VM. It's going to create that using that image. It's going to install 2016 Data Center Server Core. We're doing Server Core because Server Core has the smallest size of the engine for data center, 2016 data center for SQL. So most of them, they'll have a lot bigger, so that's why we're installing that only. We're doing the core instead of the entire version because we just want to do a quick replication and take us on. So everybody able to locate the image SKU blocks and you can see what's in there. So I just wanted to copy and paste the file. I want you guys to know what the file is going to be, what's in the file. And I also notice that file as a VM size. It also tells you the VM size in the VM size block. It's going to be standard DS1 V2. And if you go down to the variable, we have a nickname that is talking about your network card nickname. What is the address? Address is 10.101.0.0/16 for the subnet is 0. Subnet prefix. So all these are, if this is something for your organization, if you want to do it, this is where you have to go in and change this template. We're just providing this template, so we don't have to be, by creating this, it's going to take us so much time, so that's why we're doing this way. But in your real world, for you guys, this is a good template. You can use it. All you have to change the name of the VM, change the operating system that you wanted to have that VM to have, install of that VM, and you can also change the size, as well as, of course, your network stuff is something that your network admin is going to tell you what's address prefix you can use, what's the nickname going to be, your network card, all that stuff. But here we have the built, we're just using this template, so it'll make it easier for us. So once you look at all of that, we are going to save the file. There is a save button down there. Okay, so when we did save, everybody able to look at the file and we're happy. So this is the step we are saving the template. So when we click the blue button and save the template, it will bring us back to this plate. Okay, in that plate, we are looking for a parameter called edit parameters, which is on the top. On the top, you have 3 buttons. On the top right, you have edit template, and the other one is edit parameters and learn more. So we are going to select the edit parameter, not just edit template. We are selecting the edit parameters. Everybody with me on that, right? Edit parameters. Let me know if you can't find something. Everybody find the edit parameter. Right now, we are in the edit parameter window. We are going to this time upload. We are going to load the 10101 Azure deploy.parameters.json file. So we are here, in the edit parameters. Make sure you are in the edit parameters first. And we're going to load the file. We'll upload the file. This time we are going to upload EZ101-01 Azure Deploy parameters file, parameters.json file. Now we're going to upload that file. So that file just gives a value of username and password we're going to use. Username, we can override these parameters later anyway. If you don't want that username and password, you can use the username password they give us as well. Okay? Everybody able to upload the file? Then we are going to save the file down here again.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Save the file. So here are the settings. We can change things if we want to change things in here. So the VM name is AZ101 VM is the VM name. You want to leave these at username and password is, remember you saw the username and password, and here in the documentation here also, so you can change the username and password if you want. It will override what's in there. So we're choosing the resource group, your new resource group. So you can create this resource group, or you can use a resource group that we just created. So I have, mine was in the, okay, well, I'll just go and create a new user group here. So we can create the new resource group. So we can just copy and paste this resource group name. I already have one, so I am going to create new here. Okay, I know I already have it. All right. Okay, so we click on Create New, and you're going to create the resource group AZ101-01-RG. The VM name, we are going to name that AZ101-01. 101-01-VM. The username password, I just changed it because I just want to have all mine the same. It didn't matter where I'm at, so I don't lose mine here. So, but you can leave the username password if you want. That student password is PA55W.RD1234, as you can see in the document here. To give us the password. So, okay. Here, for Microsoft Windows Server, image publisher, so we're defining the publisher. We're not changing that. Okay. Publisher, image offer, image SKU, we're going to leave that SKU. Standard is ES1v2, so we're going to leave the rest the same. So all we did is we create a new resource group here, and we carry the VM name. Okay, so it's going to create a resource group, and it's going to create that for us. Now, we are going to make sure that you select I agree to the terms and conditions before we click purchase. And I don't know, some of you guys might not have permission to purchase, so we shall see. So as you can see, deployment in progress. That's going to take a couple seconds to do. It shouldn't be that long. It takes a few seconds. So, but we do not have to wait for the deployment to complete, because that's what they said here. That do not wait for the deployment to complete, but proceed to the next step. So that's what we're going to do. So we'll check, keep an eye on it, but we are not going to wait for that to complete. So now we are back into the Azure portal. We are in the Create Resource Plate. This is what we're going to look for, backup site recovery in the marketplace. So what I do is I just copy that. All right, back to the portal, let this one running. We'll come back and check in the notification later. We're going to select create a resource. In the new blade, we are going to put backup and site recovery OMS. We click enter. As you can see, backup and site recovery OMS, it tells you where are we? So we are going to click create. Everybody able to get into the backup and site recovery, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, and we select create. Now this is the service vault name. So the name of the vault here that they define, this is the name of the vault. AZ 1010102. The vault is 0102. I'm just going to put M behind it. My vault name. So of course, we only have one subscription.
My deployment, it seems it is failed. Is it required to give the same VM name what you have given in that blade for me?
Yeah, we want to keep. Yeah, you can change the resource group, but we want to keep the VM name though. It doesn't. No, it shouldn't. It doesn't matter though. It should. The only thing is that.
I got this error. What deployment is failed?
And what does it say in the deployment fail? Is that something about the details for the relay API that might be helpful? At least one deployment operation failed. Please see deployment operations for detail. Please see usage detail. Oh. Okay, when you look at the usage detail, what does it say? Anybody got that their deployment not working, but the VM name, I would name it the same, but I'm not sure if that is the cause or not. Anybody were able to had a problem or come back? Mine come back fine, I believe.
Mine failed. It says deployment failed.
Your failed too?
Yeah.
Now, do you guys have permission to purchase? Do you know?
I'm not sure.
Anybody in your group, anybody able to successfully send it? And if you look in the notifications, mine says deployment succeeded. Anybody?
Yeah, mine got succeeded.
Are you in the same, you guys have the same subscription with Pradeep and Marsh?
Yes, yes.
You do? Okay, and
Yes.
you did change the VM name, is that right?
I did change the VM name, yes.
You did name it differently?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't think naming the VM is different is the problem. Why don't you guys go back and create it again? Can you guys try it again? Make sure that you follow the document to the T, please. You can change your resource group and different VM name, as long as you remember what they are. But stay with me for a second. Let's create the recovery services vault first, and then you can go back and do that. I'll give you guys some time because the recovery service vault is important. We got to make sure that you guys don't miss anything on the service recovery vault. Okay? Are you in the recovery service vault with me, Pradeep,
Yeah.
Maharsh?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's finish this first.
Yeah.
Then you can go back and try to create the other one again. Okay? So a subscription, whatever subscription you guys are assigned to, and a resource group. Let me see if they give a new resource group here. Okay, so we have a new resource group name. Because we run into so many problems, I would recommend to stay the same as the document for now, just to make sure we don't run into any problem. Okay, I already have that, so I had to add M. Okay. My resource group, vault resource group, and I know I'm going to write down. 0102 MRG, and this is going to be in, okay, West US. So we created a new resource group, and I named it, I just had to add an M because I already had the other one. The name of the resource group, AZ1010102 resource group. So the vault is a different resource group, and also notice that this location, if you change the location on the other one, in the other resource group, you need to make sure this is a different location than the resource group we created earlier. My resource group earlier was Central US, and now I'm creating the vault in West US. We talked about there are two different regions. Everybody good? If we have that West two different location correctly, then we go to select Create. Okay, anybody else had a problem other than Pradeep and Maharsh? Anybody else had a problem creating? Nope. Okay. Pradeep, let's go back and do that. Can you please go back and do that one? Because this is running. You can go back and do the other one. You don't have to wait this to succeed. Wow, mine came back pretty quick. Because this one is easier because this vault does not have operating system or anything. The first resource group we create, the VM has operating system and all that stuff. So, Pradeep and Mahesh, can you guys go back and create that one?
I'm trying it again.
Okay, try again. And you're following the document to the T, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Because once you know how to do it, you can be creative and do other things. But for now, let's try to get the basic one working first. So I wanted to give a couple of minutes to him to create it. The creating part is pretty easy. The deployment is taking a little longer, but make sure that you can do that. So for what people that are waiting for them to do, let's go into your resource group. Let's go back into the resource group, and let's look at the resource group that you created to see if you see 101. Okay, 101. And I have 102. Let's see, 101. Thought I create, okay. Oh, recovery. I created a different, okay, this one site on AZ10102RG, you should see your vault. So make sure you have your recovery services vault. Notice that we have an automation account. It created automatically for you. It created a storage account automatically for us. So make sure you have those. And my first one, I call that site ASR. Okay, and that, I don't see, I can use my other one anyway. AC101 OMRG. Okay, so this is where in your AC1010101, you should have your virtual machine. You should see a public IP address, all of that in the resource group list. Everybody able to see the virtual machine? Notice that we create a virtual machine. It give us a network interface card, right? And also it could create a network security group for us. It give us a public IP address. Also notice that the VM, this is our operating system disk. It comes with a disk because we installed the operating system, and it also creates the virtual network. So VM is creating everything for us there. So everybody see that? And you're able to locate your VM and your vault, right? We confirm that you have the vault and you have the VM. Everybody good?
Yes, but one quick thing. I'm not able to see that storage account that you showed me. I just see the vault.
You don't have the storage account. Uh-oh. Okay, let me go back to AZ10102. Anybody else? It should create a storage account for us. Oh, okay, 10102. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right.
This is what I see.
I'm looking at the ones that I did yesterday. We're not that far yet. Okay. 101.02, AZ 101.01M. So that's what we've done so far. But you see your VM got all the stuff, right? The dist and everything.
Yes.
And Pradeep, are you in the process of, is that creating yet?
Yeah, the deployment is in progress.
Progress, we don't know yet. How about Mahesh? How about you? Is that deployment in progress yet?
Not yet. I'm still about to create.
Okay. So I'm going to get a couple minutes before we go into the vault, because going into the vault is important stuff. We got to make sure we can do it. We stick together so we don't lose anything here. So for all of us, when we're waiting, we'll go into the vault here. So the vault is in 101.01.02. Now, one thing also I want you guys to check before we get, make sure that your VM that in AC 101.01 is a different location than the vault, right? And I know I said this 100 times, but yesterday class I said 100 times, and still people did not have it in two different. So my VM is in Central US when my vault is in West US. It has to be two different locations. We all good, right? Then you can.
So what if I need to change it?
The location?
Yeah.
I'm not.
Do I need to create a new one?
Yeah, I just created a new one. There's not sure, but what happened? I did tell you guys to create two different locations, right?
Yeah, when I redid it, I created both in the West US.
Okay, but why did you do that? You don't remember what I said, or you didn't hear what? I mean, I'm just trying to make sure people. Maybe I didn't make it clear. Is that?
No, I just didn't realize it was West US.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Please make sure, because remember when we're going to create replication, right? So there's no reason of having two copies in the same region, right, guys? Because we're going to set up a failover. So we want to make sure that if something happened in one region, you can still get your the copy of your data in the other, okay? So that's a reason we want it in two regions. So he find that out, which is good. You find out now. Everybody else, were you able to make sure that your VM and your vault is in two different regions, guys? Please confirm it's in two different regions. Everybody got that, right? It says to be in two different regions.
Yes.
Okay, so anybody else were able to, we have your vault. If you have your vault, let's go ahead and open the vault. The vault should be in your AZ 101.02 resource group, and your vault should be in your 101.02 resource group. Once we are in the resource group, the document has an error. That's why I'm trying to make sure everybody sees that. In the document here, the step, so make yourself a note if you want to go back in and create it at some other time without wanting to go back and do the same exercise again. So we are in the exercise 2, the test 1. Blake, so go to the vault AZ, the one we just created. In that vault, Blake, configure the following replication settings. Now, the replicate button is on the top. On your vault, when you go to the vault, we are in the overview Blake. On the top, we have plus backup, plus replicate, delete, and refresh. You see 4 there, guys? We are going to click the replicate button. Everybody able to locate that locate the replicate button, and are we in the replicate window, which should say enable replication, and we have 3 tabs there, which is the source, configure the source, the virtual machine, and replication settings. Everybody, are you guys in the same place as me? And in the enable replication, that 3 tab, we are in the source tab now. So in the source is your VM, which is, we created that in that AZ1010101 resource group. So we are making sure that the source is Azure, which is Azure, but you can also click the drop down. You should see you can also replicate from on-premises as well. But in our case, we're going to, the source is Azure. And I am pointing back to the document to make sure the source is Azure, right? We have the source is Azure. Now the source location, so where's our VM? My VM is in Central US because my VM is in that AZ1010101M resource group for me. So where is your source location? Where is your VM? Make sure you put in the right place. Deployment model is going to be resource manager. Subscription, you guys should only have one or whatever subscription that you were assigned to. Source resource group, so select your resource group. Mine is this 1101M. That's my resource group. So so this is pointing the sources. You have to put the right central location for your resource group is in. And if you don't know what your resource group location is, go back to look at it, make sure you have it correctly. We are going to click OK in the source tab. Everybody so far so good? Now, as soon as you put the right source, notice that your VM will show up. That's only one VM I have. So make sure you put a check mark in we are in the second tab, Virtual Machine Select tab. In that Virtual Machine Select tab in the document here again. So you're going to select the virtual machine you created, okay? So that's where we are. So select that. We only have one there. And we are going to click OK. Pradeep and Maharsh, is that your guys' deployment come back yet?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And it works this time?
Yeah, it works this time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I just created the new resource group. There is a
Okay.
different thing I did it.
Okay. All right. All right. So now what we're going to do, now we are in the last one, select settings configure, settings configure. So we are going to select service configure. Okay, so service configure, target, this is going to be the target. So where is your vault in? So make sure you know where your vault is in what location. We create the vault in. Mine is in West US, so I'm going to select West US. You guys select whatever location that your vault is in. The middle part here, we are going to leave everything not touched. We're not touching anything in here. Everybody good? In the middle section, resource group, network, storage, availability. We are going to leave everything the way it is. Now we are going down to the section, had replication policy. You're with me, right? We are going down to the replication policy. In the replication policy, we are going to select every world. Okay, so in that, okay, I think we are, sorry, replication policy. So replication policy, we're going into the replication policy section. We are going to select customize. Everybody with me on that? Everybody see that customize link? All right, and the customize link, notice that when we click the customize link in the replication policy, you have a configure replication setting blank pop up. In that configure replication setting, everybody see that, right? So we are, as far, I'm still pointing back to the document. So this is what we're going to go change. We're going to go change the recovery point retention to be 12, snapshot frequency to be 6 hours, multi-VM consistency to be no, because we only have one. We don't need to worry about multi-thing. Okay? So we're going to name the first thing. We are going to name that, name a new replication policy, 12-hour replication policy. So instead of 24, 12-hour retention policy. Everybody see that right in the document as well? It's saying we are creating a new replication policy, 12-hour retention policy. That's the name of ours. Okay, now in the second one, recovery point retention, we're going to change that to 12, according to the document. A consistent snapshot frequency, we are going to click a drop down and select 6. Multi-VM consistency, the default is no anyway, so we're going to leave that no. Okay, so in this configure replication settings, the name is 12, change it to 12-hour retention policy, which we had 24, so we just need to change 12. Recovery point retention is 12 hours, guys. And consistent snapshot frequency is 6. Multi-VM consistency parameter is no. Are we all good? If you got it correctly, we are going to select OK. Now we are back in the configure settings blade at the bottom of the configure setting blade. So before we go do that, make sure we have it right. Make sure that you have target location correct. Make sure that target resource group, we got it. Target resource group, target virtual network, otherwise 101.01 and target resource group. Okay, here at let's in the middle section, let me click customize. My target resource group is not 101.01. Mine should be 101.102 because target is where my vault is. Okay. That is the, okay, so that is my original target resource group should be 111.2 because that's where my vault is. Target virtual network. I changed my target resource group because that's not the right target resource group we had. It's in West US and it should be 111.02 MRG. Target resource group. I don't see it. Okay. 2 MRG. Okay. So if your target resource group is not correct, in the customized target settings, go in and change that. Make sure that is correct. Virtual network should be also. Yes. All right. I'm not sure that is. Let's say target resource group. Why is that? We have R1 RG. No, let's say there's a 101 RG. Okay, I guess I'm not going to leave that and not complain. RG. Okay, all right. Okay, target, okay, just making sure that the target looks the one they wanted in there, so I'll just leave the 01 in there. All right, now create a target resources. Okay, that's what we're going to create. So let's click that create a target resource group. the button at the bottom. That's what okay. Yeah, see, I don't think that, I think that it's not, I don't think that's right, that's what we're saying in the book, okay. Okay, all right, so if you guys got all, come back, the setting come back, and click on Enable Replication. So this is where Enable Replication, that's where the operation in progress, that's going to take time. So everybody able to get that back, and you select the Enable Replicate. So, okay, this one normally take about 15 minutes, but everybody, were you guys able to click the Enable Replicate and it's running now? Or anybody had a problem?
I'm just clicking on Enable Replication. It doesn't respond.
It's not running on the top?
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, same here. It's not running.
It's not running. Okay, I never see that running. But no error either?
No errors.
And can you look at that document and see, is there anything in the file, in the file, are we missing a field or something? That's the only reason I can see it will not, you can't click Enable. Anybody else had problem?
Because I got a tick mark on everything. Source, virtual machines, and settings.
Yeah, I'm also having the same problem.
Yeah, probably permission with the subscription, I think.
Any of you guys are, anybody in the same subscription group with Pradeep, you will get able to click the Enable Replication, but it should give us an error though if you don't have permission. You know what I mean? I don't think it's a permission is what I'm saying. Because if it's that issue, they should have tell you. They would have given you an error. Anybody able to click it though? Or everybody having the same problem?
Earlier, when we are creating that resources, I saw this error. I'm just putting it here in the chat.
When you create the resource group, you have an error.
Yeah, when we created the resources, the earlier step to the.
Oh, okay. To grant
Yeah, we saw this warning, but the deployment was succeeded for this creating this whatever the end draft.
Yeah, because you don't have the service principal completed.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Okay.
if you look at the notifications, you don't see that create service principal. You don't have that.
Okay, yeah, that's why
Is that right?
we are unable to click that. Like basically,
Because that's a permission. Okay, anybody else has that, or anybody in your group has it? Anybody has? Well, even the same subscription, you can have different permission. So, were you able to do the backup though? Or you have the same problem with the backup?
The backup is fine. I think it's the replication.
Okay. The thing was, you don't have permission to create service principal. Any of you guys don't have your own portal? Somebody asked me for the link. I gave the link the other day to create your own, get a 30 days free trial Azure portal. I would highly recommend to get that though, because your site there's a lot of restriction, which is that's they're supposed to, because it's not it's not a testing site, right? If you have your own Azure portal, did anybody got that email? I know, did I give it to Pradeep, or who did? Somebody request me and I gave it to them. I don't. If you don't, anybody interested in getting that your own portal site?
I think you sent it to Prakash, maybe.
Yeah, I sent it to somebody. Somebody sent me an email, and I sent it to that person. I don't remember. I'll upload it here for you guys in a minute. But I mean, going, just for yours, if for you guys to learn, it'll be good that if you have no restriction, you know what I mean? But it makes sense that in your environment you don't want to have, you want to have that restriction. No, that's it. No, that's not it. Okay, I'll find that and forward that email. I thought it was Jeff, maybe Jeff. I don't remember who sent me email, and
it was me. I actually, that file is up on MA through for everybody on the call as well.
Okay, so everybody hear that? So you had to upload it for other people, right?
Correct. It's
Okay.
on the same Azure training where I've been uploading all the other documents.
Okay, so did everybody hear that? So if that's something that, I mean, you don't need to do it right away, but it may not be to today, but today you might just have to watch. But that's I would highly recommend to get your own, Azure portal, and you can get it for 30 days free. And he says that he does have it in the same site where the documents are, so you guys should be able to download that. And after 30 days, it's for each email account. So after 30 days, you can go and create another Gmail account and keep going until you're comfortable with it before so you can do it. I had mine for about 6 months like that, 30 days, stuff like that. Now I finally, this is paid subscription, but previous, before when it came out, when it was in beta, that's what I did. So you guys can go get that 30-day trial, and you can change, after 30 days, you can create a new Gmail account and request get another 30 days free until you're comfortable with that. But I highly recommend you guys to go do that, because we are still waiting. But can anybody tell me you're able to click the enable replication and you're waiting for that replication to be complete? Anybody? Nobody can do that? Or I just want to know, if anybody can do that at all? Nobody? Ganga, can you do that? Anybody? Huh. I'm not hearing from anybody, so I'm assuming nobody can do that? Is that my assumption correct? Nobody can run it? Okay, no one can do that? Am I assuming that, or? Okay. I'm not sure. Nobody's responding to me. Does that mean no or yes? But can you guys hear me at all? Or maybe not. People not hearing me.
Yeah,
I,
we can hear you.
you can hear me. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you know anybody can do that or no?
I don't think so. At least Mahesh, Vatsa, and me are in the same subscription. We are not able to.
Okay. I know there's someone else's. I mean, there's another subscription other people are using, right? I think last time we find out there's two different groups have two different subscriptions. Okay.
Abhilash or Binay, are you able to do it? Because you are in a different subscription, right?
Pradeep, you're in the same subscription. We also got the service principal error.
Okay. Service principal error. Okay. So no one can do that?
Yeah, I think so, man.
Okay, so pretty much, but we're almost at the end anyway. I mean, if once you do the application, so if you can't do that, what I'm trying to find out is that we need to wait or not. So I already have one running, so I will show you the one I already got working. So this is the last test that is the only thing that you guys can do, so which is this part here, which is pretty much testing to see. So I'm going to go to. I already create one of my other ones, so I'm going to go to the one I have a vault already that I did yesterday, 101 for the other class, 10102. Is it 10102? 101, yeah, 02. Okay, so you guys just look at my screen for a second. So if when you click that enable replication, what it's going to do is now in my recovery vault. So I'm not waiting for this to come back because you guys don't need to see that. Then I can go back into the vault once it's created, replicated, go into my replicated items. So notice that I have a replicated item. So that's the replicated item that we have. So this is a copy of 10101 VM. So I have it in my 10102. So okay, now I have a copy of that VM. So I replicated that VM. Right? So item blade, I just displaced that. Replicated item blade, you're checking that it's healthy, blah, blah, blah. So last recovery point. So it should say view section. So go into health and status, failover, readiness, latest point, and infrastructure. In mine, I left it on. So the status is protected. It means that it's completed already. And so normally it will synchronize. It takes about 90 minutes to get 100%, so we're not going to try again. The value of, as well as crashed recovery points, you can perform a test failover to that virtual network, which we're not going to test because it could take a couple hours to finish that 90 minutes to failover. But you complete this, you have configured replication for that VM, and you can review the Azure VM replication setting. So that, I'm sorry that you guys can't do, but that's pretty much what it is, that we have a replication setup. And we can do a test failover. We can set failover, disable replication. So this is where we can test failover, which I'm not going to do it now. But you guys can, once the application, replication complete, it will come, and this status will change to all these different status that you see in the document, and say percentage synchronized. Once that is completed, then you can set up as a failover. Means that when the other machine died, this machine will fail over to this machine, fail over to this one, and you can test the failover as well. All right. So that is what we are talking about in replication. I'm sorry you guys can't do the whole thing, but you didn't miss much. You just missed the end. When you see this, this is what when that enable replication run, this is what we're going to see when it's complete. And you can either disable that replication, you can do failover, a test failover. Okay, any questions, concerns, burning desires? Nope. Okay, let's take a 15-minute break. When we come back, we are going to do the storage. Hopefully, you guys can do the storage. And in the meantime, we're going to break. If anybody interested to go get that Azure portal, the free version, that would be good as well. Okay, mine is still running, so I'm going to try to see if I can stop it. But anyway, if not, stop by 15 minutes. I'll dismiss it. All right, so let's take a 15-minute break. It's about 8:02, so we'll come back at 8:15. That sounds good, guys? I am going to stop my sharing and for a second, so I can check some emails here. I'm muted, but I'll be right back, and so we'll meet back at 15 minutes.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I assume everybody had a chance to download, upload, whatever you have to do, and we have Azure Storage. So let's talk a little bit about what is Azure Storage. Okay, so storage is a very good thing. So think of Azure Storage as an external hard drive, because in the storage we don't, it's a lot cheaper than the VM, and I was talking about how the storage has been cheaper because it's just a hard drive, right? So it's like an external hard drive. So you can have different storage services, and in the Azure Storage, normally I would put in data that is going to be archived data that people are not going to be using. That data is not going to have a lot of in and out transaction coming in and out. In that type of scenario, that's when I will put that data in the storage. And for like data warehouse and stuff, I will put it in the Azure Storage, data warehouse data, as well as data if I'm doing some testing, or if I'm trying to move some data, I might move it into storage before I move it into a VM. So that's what the storage is used for. We'll show different type of storage services, and we'll go through different standard and premium accounts and different storage type. Hopefully you guys can do this, all right? So there's three categories in Azure Storage. We have storage for virtual machines, you have disk and file shares. So normally anything that right now on network, every company on a network, we have a network file share. We can use network file share. Instead of network file share, we can use storage for that. So that's a very good use of storage. Also, we store unstructured data, which is blobs and data lake store. So what are unstructured data? We've been talking about unstructured data. So structured data is a data that structured data are either their relational database data or object-oriented database data, structured data. All SQL databases are structured. Structured means that you can't enter things without structure. Means you have you have policies and rules and boundaries. So examples like, okay, if I wanted to add a customer record into SQL database, structured data, I have to know to put that record in, I have to know what fields are in that table. I need to know what the data type of those each column in the table. That's what we mean by structure. So you cannot put anything you want in there. It has, it already have rules and regulations that for a example customer name, it has to be a character customer name. For the customer name, you cannot put special characters, right? So that type of restriction we have on a customer name. Customer name has to be a string data type. That's what structured data is. Unstructured data are all the data that we have. Data that we have on the all the social media, all the tweets, all that kind of stuff, all the tweets, all the chats that we have, those are unstructured data. So unstructured data are very hard to very hard to maintain, right? Because it's not, doesn't have any rules or regulations. That's why unstructured data, we normally put it in, we're going to put it in blobs in data lake. We cannot put unstructured data into a relational database because the relational database will kick it out because say, hey, you don't, you're not following the rules for a customer name, customer ID, phone number, whatever the structure they have. So that's why unstructured data is very popular right now because we have all these unstructured data, and you know as well as I do, data worth nothing unless you can analyze that data. We can use that data. If that data we can't use that data, we cannot analyze it. That data worth nothing to anybody, nothing to the company as well. So to make sense out of that unstructured data, we have, that's why we have tools and all that, different applications that we can use, and we have different type of storage, which is blobs and data lake storage that can handle unstructured data. And in today's world, unstructured data is getting more and more popular, and we're having more and more unstructured data, so we really need to have a handle on how to manage those data. So that's what, so storage is also used for unstructured data, which is very popular these days. So storage is a big part of Azure Portal. And in the Azure Storage Services, we have blobs, we have files, tables, and queue. So this is the 4 different Azure Storage Services we have for now. In the next version of Azure, we are adding more functionality as we go, as we were talking earlier. Azure is still a live system, which means that new functionality is getting added all the time. But for now, we have this 4 different type blob. Those are REST-based object storage for unstructured data. As I said, file shares use standard SMB 3.0 protocol. So earlier we're talking about network file share. All the file folders, all the data you have on your network drive, shared drive right now, you can put it out to Azure Storage Files type services, then we can handle that. Tables, we have tabular data storage for analytical stuff. If you want to analyze your data stuff, most tools that are using tables. And then we also have queues. Scale apps according to traffic. So queues are used to scale your apps. So either a website app or any other type of apps you have, you can put the request comes into a queue, and you manage your queue. How based for those particular application, you can create settings to make sure that the queues goes in by default. Queue is first in, first out, right? Whatever the first message comes in, it's going. That's what's going to happen. So. Azure queues are important because that is a messaging store for reliable messaging between application components. So some of the apps, I don't know if you've seen it, but some of the apps that are retail apps, sometimes are GPS apps, that app is calling another app, right? When you go into, even go into the retail stuff, that some of them you can do a GPS, or you can purchase an airline ticket through Skype type of backend. So in that case, the application is going to send a message to Skype. So that between the two applications, or send a message to Office 365, depends on whatever you're using. But between the two communication between Skype and your app, or Skype and Office 365, all of that is go into Azure Queue. So Azure Queues is used for messaging stored between applications. So, and we have storage accounts so far. We have 2 storage accounts. We have standard and premium. Of course, standard is backed by magnetic drive, which is HDD. HDD drives are slower and it's lowest cost per gigabyte. But if you have a data in there that we want to store data, storage account normally, if you push like archive data and stuff, then you wanted to put in standard storage account, which is the cheapest. And a premium is using solid state drive, SSD. It can only be used with Azure VM Disk. It has to be Azure VM Disk for premium. Storage accounts does not have to be associated to a VM. So storage type, we have storage version 2, which is the latest version. When you're looking, it's also the type. It's pretty much account kind. So we have general purpose V2 and storage general purpose V1. V1 is going away. We're just keeping that for now until there's anything we created new. You should be using storage V2 and not V1. Storage V2 has more functionality than V1, and it also supports the latest, newest functionality we add to Azure. So going forward, you should only create it in V2. We only created in V1 for if you already have storage and other VMs and stuff created in the V1, we wanted to have backward compatibility. But in the long run, V1 is going to go away. So anytime you create something new, you should not use V1. And of course, blob storage, specialized for storing unstructured data, unstructured object data. And you say you can easily upgrade from, general purpose V1 to V2 with no downtime, without needing to copy your data. So accessing the storage, you can enjoy every object has a unique URL address. So the storage account name from the subdomain of that address. So you have blob service, and so HTTP, whatever your storage account blob.corewindows.net. That's always going to be true. Only thing will change is the name of your storage account. Table service, HTTP mystorageaccount.table.core.windows.net. Queue service, HTTP storage account queue.corewindows.net, and file service. We have HTTP mystorageaccount.filecore.windows.net. Now, if you say, well, I don't want it to call that blobs this is your storage account name .blob.core.windows.net, then you can create a CNAME record and make sure, so instead of saying my storage account .blob, you can say blob.contoso.com. So you can create your own target. You create your own name for your storage account, and you can create a custom domain, which we'll get to do that in the lab. So when we have Azure Storage Explorer, you can access multiple accounts and subscription within the Azure Storage Explorer. We can create and delete. So the Azure Storage Explorer is where it's going to show up anything that related to storage. It doesn't matter in which subscription you have or which group you created in, it will all show up in one place. So this is one place that you can manage all your storage. So you can access all the multiple accounts and subscriptions. You can create, delete, view, edit storage resources. You can view and edit blob in a queue table, file, Cosmos DB storage, data lake storage, all of those. So that's one-stop shop that you can manage all your storage through a Storage Explorer. We can also obtain shared access signature called SAS key, and so this is a little different from SSH, but you can create SAS key, shared access signature, and we need you if you want to put that on your Azure storage, which means the users do not have to have permission to access into Azure portal. They just have to have access to that particular storage. If you want to create it that way. For normally you give it to external customers, or if you have a consultant that only works there for a short time, you can just give access to the storage only. If that's what if you weren't available for both, we have it you can create this on Windows operating system, Mac, and Linux as well. So for Storage Explorer connection, so again, you remember we were talking about for the very beginning, subscription is a separate object, and in Azure is built based off object-oriented methodology. So we wanted to make sure that every object in there is standalone. So everything in object is standalone. So anytime you want to connect to Azure Storage, even though you're already in the portal. And of course, the user is not going. You have to have access to go into the storage so you can do things. So same thing like we connect to the VM, we also have to connect to the Azure storage. So work with local deployed development storage emulator. We can attach external storage also. We can attach storage account or storage service by using SES with shared access signature. We connect to Azure Cosmos DB account by using a connection string. So anything or everything you want to do, there's a lot of stuff you can do in storage. And one thing to keep in mind, storage is the most affordable price, so we don't want it to use storage. So every time you have an application that you're creating, you need to think of it, can I put it in the storage, or do I need a VM? If you need a VM, it's going to cost you more always, right? So you wanted to make sure we wanted to create it storage in here. I'm going to, because I wanted to show you guys the storage that I had. I'm sure I already created storage somewhere. I think I have storage resource group. Mm-hmm. So this is my storage group. So in my storage group, I have a bunch of storage. You can create any storage here: blobs, files, tables, queues. That's the 4 services we're talking in this overview blade of storage. Also keep that in mind. Also, you can look at a total egress, which is for all of them. Total ingress, average latency. We have all these information right off the bat here. Request breakdown. You can check out what the request breakdown you have for all the services. But here is the Open and Explore. So that's what we're talking. That Storage Explorer is right here. And that's something that hopefully we have permission, because you have to have Storage Explorer to open it. Now, we were talking about earlier, I don't know why, what does it say again? I should have a Storage Explorer. I should already have it. I don't know, is that my internet is being acting weird, or it's been slow. Normally it should come up right away. Okay, book. We'll look at that later. Hopefully I might have to install it too. But we're talking that SES here, shared access signature. So this is in the shared access signature. We'll see that, okay, allow services. So shared access signature, you can say, okay, if, for a particular person, I want them to have only access to the file share. We don't want to give access to blob, queue, or table. This is where you're going to go change. Allowed resource type. I'm going to allow a service, container, and object, or I just want to give the access to container only. Allowed permissions. Permissions is very, very important to know. You can read, write, delete to whatever object you got granted here. So in this case, we have given permission for read, write, delete, list, add, create, update process for any storage you have in the blobs, the files, queues, or table. On a file share, you might not want to give that file share. For some users, we might want to only give read and write. We don't want them to delete out of the file share. So these are things that you can look at for each permission, and start and date anytime. You can also give a user access and a specific time frame only. So earlier we were talking about if you have a consultant and the consultant only works, it's a 9-month project, you can give access to that and say they only have permission for 9 months. So you can have a start time and end time. You're going to define which IP address you're going to allow to connect. Allowed protocols, HTTPS only, or you can do HTTPS and HTTP both. And sign-in key, you're going to say what sign-in key, that you can generate SES connection string. When we collect, we'll go to do that in the lab, so no worry. I just want to make sure you guys see where they are. So that's all the stuff that we can do in the Storage Explorer, and I think I could do a Storage Explorer preview. Okay, so I can do a Storage Explorer from here. I don't know why we can't do that earlier. But in the Storage Explorer, so this is showing all the containers. So we have blobs, we have file shares. If you have stuff in here, it's going to show. I don't have anything yet. So you have blob containers, and you can create a blob container. We can create a file share, which we'll get to do some of these. But if you create a blob container, again, we're not going to create anything here, but when you access the name, I want to show you that access level. We have 3: private, No anonymous access. Private means that I can access, unless I give it to you, you cannot access my storage, my container. Blob, anonymous, no anonymous, read access for blobs only. Blob means, okay, you can have read access, but only for blob, not to other services that, there are 4 services we have. Container, you can give it to the blob or you can give it to the container. What that is that, so at each in each blob, you can have many containers, right? So that's why we're saying you can give it to a container level, or you can give it to a blob container level, or you can give it to the blob level only. File share, the same thing. We can create a file share, we can add the name, and you can set a quota for the file share. How many you can upload. You don't want to, you cannot have unlimited. You have to set a quota for the file share. And we'll share the limits and stuff. Queues, the same thing. If I wanted to create a queue, I had to set up a queue name and assign all that other stuff. So these are all the good stuff we're going to get to do today, and hopefully you guys can do that. So this is talking about the different storage, blob containers. I just showed a little bit of blob performance tiers, how to upload the blobs, blob access policies, blob storage pricing. We'll look at some of those later as well. So again, we talked about in today, right now, the most important in data world going on is how do we handle unstructured data? That's being a big thing, because like all these, Skypes and all these social medias you have, there are good information in there. So if somebody had a new product, even like iPhone 10R, 10X came out, they wanted to check that how many people are tweaking about that, right? So that is tweaks our unstructured data, because in order to analyze that unstructured data, it's a very important thing in today's world on managing data. So that's why all these blob storages that comes in play. So storage for unstructured data. So here's just saying that we can have the particular account username. Here is Sally. She has a container called pictures. So in the container, you can have as many blob as you want, but you can give user down to the blob level access instead of container. If you give user a container level, they will have access to all the blobs within your container. Okay, so no, and this is, most organizations do this too. It's very easy to make sure that we separate the pictures and movies, or not. We might even have a third container called text, and we do that for a lot of websites also. That way all the videos are stored in one container, the other pictures are stored in one, static pictures stored in one, video stored in one, we store text in one. So that's what blob storage are very popular to use. To streaming audio, storing files for distributed access, storing data for backup and restore, disaster recovery. So we can also put a blob storage, storing data for analysis. Analysis is very, very important these days, right? You have data. If you cannot analyze that data worth nothing to us. So we want to make sure that we can analyze that data. Okay, so within the containers, you can have blobs. We can give at the blob level access to individuals. So the hierarchy again is for the blob containers that we have subscription. Within a subscription, you have a resource group. Within the resource group, then you are going to create you have a storage account. The storage account, in that we have a different type of storage. This is blob storage type. Within the blob storage type, we have container. Within the containers, you have individual blobs. Okay? Hierarchy is that way. So all blobs must be in a container. You cannot have a blob storage sitting outside of a container. It always has to be in a container. And you always have to set up, when you create a new container, that what type of access level are you going to give the users, that individual, your blob services, so you can assign either private, blob, or a container. It's something that I'm testing in the data and stuff, and it's my test data. I put it in a blob storage. I will make it private. I don't want anybody to see it unless I'm ready to share that, right? So containers can have unlimited blobs. that's as true or false, because if you have too much blobs in there, more than your size of the, that you were given for each resource group. When we create a resource group, administrators can set that limit, that how big your resource group can be. So if they, or you can just have a default, just let it go. So you need to make sure that you're not exceeding that your resource group quota. And you can blob access, we talked about that. Container access, you can also, not at the blob level, we can also create it at the specific container level access. That's what we're doing here. Performance tier. So performance tier is very important. We have 3: hot, cool, and archive. And depend on the subscription that you purchase, you might only see hot and cool, and you might not see archive. Okay. Hot tier is optimized for frequent access of objects in the storage. So hot tier, even though cool tier is a lot cheaper than hot tier, but in cool tier if you set up cool and you have a lot of transactions coming in, you are getting charged for transactions too. So there's a fine line that you have to figure out what is the best way to do. Hot tier means that you have a lot of access going into. Sometimes we put data into a blob storage so we can run reports from that. But if that report we're running maybe once a month or so, then it's okay to keep it in cool level because we don't have access all the time. But even though that data is for reporting, and let's say people are running reports, every 5 minutes or so, that type of thing, then it's better to keep it in the hot tier. Okay. And archive, of course, to tolerate several hours of retrieval latency, it will remain in the archive tier for at least 180 days. Again, depends on the permission subscription that you purchase. You might not have archive. We might only have hot and cool. I know I don't have archive because I didn't pay for archive. Then the blobs, we can upload the blobs. So these are the files on your desktop, on your computer, or on your network. You're going to upload the blob into the storage. And useful for storing text or binary files if you just do a blob. So in the blob itself, we also have 3 types of blob: block blob, page blobs, and append blobs. So block blobs is a default. It's a storing text or binary. Page blobs is more efficient for frequent read-write operations because it's page that is paging, so it goes quicker if you have page block. And append block is used for logging scenarios. So if you have an issue at an application inside or anything, and we set it up in logging, we need to turn on logging, so you can put it in the append blobs. Again, that would be cheaper than having logs sitting on your VM. So that's why we do it that way. You cannot change a blob type once it has been created. So once you create it, you cannot change. That's one thing with Azure. A lot of things because they are individual objects. Once it's created, you cannot change. So it's very important to make sure you know all the parameters and all the information before you start creating it. Of course, you guys are my students, so you don't have that problem, right? You already know everything, so you can create the blobs and you know all the parameters that you need to know, right? Humor me. Yes, May, we agree. Blob access policies. It's very different for me with this session with you guys. I know that because a lot of people in it, so I know you have to mute it because if you don't stay mute, it's going to be too much noise for people communication stuff. But it's very hard because I'm not used to that people not responding to me. So I'm just kind of making jokes. So the blob access policy here, we can create that. A policy is very important. What permission you're giving, and you can give that policy in each blob, each container level, or at the blob level. So you can have read, add, create, write, delete, and list. List means that you can see what's in there, but you cannot open it. So it's kind of cool. So you're teasing people that, hey, you can see it, but you can't touch it. additional level of control over server-side SAS. We will do that SAS steps to giving permission to people to connect, that your service access signature beyond the policy, and you can support blob containers, file shares, tables, and queues. When it comes to permission, you guys know that, right? Permission is an inheritance. So because permission is inheritance, you have to be very careful. Because what I meant by inheritance is that if you give somebody a permission at the resource group level, so right, so inheritance is like, right, everything that my parents, I will inherit what from my parents, my kids will inherit from me. So inheritance is always go from top to bottom. It's always go down. Inheritance always go down. Okay, so keep in mind that inheritance go down, permission is bottom up. So inheritance is top-down model, but permission is bottom-up model, and I'll explain that in a second. Top-down means that if you give permission to, if you get permission, somebody has if you give a resource group level permission, and the resource group, you give all the permission, they can read, write, execute, do whatever they want to do at the resource group level. Now, even though you didn't assign it at the storage, but if that storage was created in that resource group, that storage has what? That storage object will have inherit all the permissions from the resource group. So now the storage account can do anything. Anybody has access to a storage account, be able to do everything that they inherited from the resource group permission. However, in that storage, we created a blob. We had a blob container, and we created a specific blob. When we have that, but if you deny somebody, or you say, okay, you only have at the container level, they only have list permission. So the list permission that you have, that is going to override, right? So bottom up. Always something that you deny, deny permission is going to override all the allow permission. We're all good with that, right? You know what I'm talking about. So if I deny at that level, or you say, well, that individual do not have access to that container, so deny always going to override allow permissions. And the permissions are always come from top down. Allow permissions always. Inheritance always come top down, but deny permission is bottom up. Everybody got that? What I mean by that, right? So sometimes we'll have administrators. Oh, these people are not supposed to have permission on this container, that container. But what happened? They didn't give that container permission, directly. However, because the permission comes from inheritance, if that user had permission in the storage level, that user will have permission in everything created in that storage. So you have to be very careful in Azure. That's why hierarchy is very important. So I mentioned this many times that, hey, within the subscription, if you give somebody a permission level at the subscription level, which you should not give anybody at the subscription level, bottom line. But subscription level, they will have access to everything and anything in that subscription. So permission is always inheritance and always go from top to bottom. Deny permission is going to go bottom up. Deny permission always going to override all allow permission. All right. Okay. So we are talking about permissions in that thing here, so I wanted to make sure we got the permission. And like I was saying, for policies, you can always set a start time and end time, or you can make it always permanent, that permission never going to expire. But most likely you want to set up a start time and expiry time, okay? Storage pricing, as you can see, a blobs is a 2 gigabyte per month. 2 cents per month, not even 2 cents, 0.002 cents per month, $0.002 per month, 0.06 gigabyte per month per file. So you can see how cheap it is. Compared to VM, it is very cheap. Okay? and the storage cost, blob storage, data access cost. However, this is just to store the data. This is not including the data access cost. If you are paying per transaction cost as well, so think of that. And depends on what type of geo replication you're doing. Are you doing locally redundant, or are you doing geographical, redundant? So it depends on what type of replication you choose also. That's going to come in play for the pricing. And also either transaction costs. Are you doing inbound, outbound? Are you doing locally? And you can change the storage tier, which is not good to do, but if you do, storage tier also change you have different costs for all of that. Okay, Azure Files, we have Azure Files, Azure File versus Blob. We will create a file share, and how to map a file share Windows, map file share Linux. You can secure a transfer required if you wanted to make sure your transfer is secured. Secure transfer required. You can set up permission for that. So that means you're doing stuff transferring using HTTPS secure. File share, we can do a snapshot for a file share. So like earlier we were looking at, back into the portal here. Okay, back in the storage. So if we go into file share. We don't have file share, so we can try to add. So when you create a file share, again, we have to set up CODA, we talked a little bit about earlier, and you have to make sure that you have, we discard a file share. Now, file share within each storage, you should have a unique file share name. However, again, this is back to we're talking about business rules and policies and stuff. So normally when you create a file share, you want it to include your storage name. So that way you know that file share exists within that storage. So that would be a rule of thumb that I would highly recommend. We're creating a file share in this demo, so you'll get to do that. Hopefully you guys have permission to do that. And back to here talking about, okay, so we are going to manage file shares in cloud that are accessible via SMB. You can also do SMB, replace and supplement. We are doing with a lift and shift, Azure file synchronization, shared applications, diagnostic data, tools and utilities, you name it. Think of that every single thing in Azure is a separate object. We are using standard SMB 3.0 protocol for file share. Okay, files versus blobs. So this is good to us, as people always say, when should I use Azure Files, should I use Azure Blob? To me, it's very clear, but anyway, the description here talking is SMB interface, client libraries, and REST interface will allow access from anywhere to store the files. You can use lift and shift an application to the cloud. We can store shared data across multiple virtual machines. We can store, deploy, development and debugging tools that need to be accessed from many virtual machines. We can store it in the Azure file. We don't have to store it in every single virtual machine. So that's a pretty cool stuff to do. And the Azure blobs, client libraries and REST interface that allows unstructured data. So blobs are normally used for unstructured. It's a flat namespace because it is unstructured. We don't have that hierarchy like we have in a relational database. And access to a massive scaled in block blobs. Support streaming and random access scenarios. Access application data from anywhere. We can use Azure blobs as well. So we're going in and do this anyway. Retrieve storage account and storage account key. We go into storage account. Now storage account. So we're creating a variable here. A storage contact, new storage contact. This is the command. You guys know by now. This storage account name. You can name anything you want as long as it's follow the valid name convention. Which a valid name means you cannot have any special characters. I would name everything in lowercase to stay on the safe side. And then storage account key. Okay, so the storage account name and storage account key, when you're reading it, the syntax is, that means that those are something you created. You create a storage account key name, create the file share, in this case log, so we had a share. We create a log and we're putting the log of this storage account file into the share variable. So we are going to ensure point is 445 is open. You got to make sure we can go in and map the file share. Here we're mapping with drive C. If you did network file share, that's pretty similar. That's what we do. We have to set up a UNC path. In this case, you have to give the link to that account user. For every mapping we create, you have to have account user, which should be administrator most of the time. And then we define a storage count. TCP port 445, so you have to make sure it's outbound port. We need to make sure that port is not blocked in order to do a mapping. And we are going to, anytime we do a file share in any block, right, every storage, you are going to mount, in this case we're doing a Linux, so sudo means like administrator in Linux, a sudo is the command. Sudo mount -t, that is the parameter. Say, as a storage account name, file core.windows.net, the share name, and mount point, that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on how many disks they have. Version, the username that can have access to this file share for this mount. Password, storage account, directory mode, file mode. When you're doing these 0777 and file mode 07, those are Linux things. That means they read, write, execute stuff. I'm not I don't not remember top of my head, but that each one represent either read, write, execute something. Install the usual package, meet the client requirements, decide on the directory file. You go to change permission and create entry and persist the mount. Now, if you mount to use a file share, you need to make sure that after you've done the bed, you need to dismount it. If you don't, that will stay on it. That cost you much. You wanted to make sure that you unmount it. You need to make sure we create a secure transfer required. Only allows you to use HTTPS because we wanted to make sure that the data is encrypted. So you can do it through in the portal as well as PowerShell, as you know. So set AC storage account, the name. So anything when we see dash name. So let's, because we've been doing PowerShell a lot already, and I'm sure some of you guys already know. But when we see set that AC storage account, that is a commandlet. They we call commandlet. That's a command name. That is a command which is going to translate it for your PowerShell command to your underlayer operating system. So you cannot change that. Set AC storage account. Now, every commandlet has many parameters. And this is one of the parameters, we say dash name. So anything you see with double quote, that is your storage account name. You can name whatever it is as long as it is a valid name. Then we have a resource group name, and you can name any valid resource group name. And we are setting that, hey, enable HTTPS traffic only. So which means that if somebody comes in with HTTP only, not the HTTPS, you're saying, hey, don't let them in. They cannot create a storage account using HTTP only. File share snapshots captures the share state at the point in time. Is read-only copy of your data. Snapshot at the file share level. We can retrieve individual files, okay, incremental in nature. So it can keep adding stuff into, file share snapshot is going to keep adding new stuff into it. Uses protection against application error and data corruption. Protection against accidental deletions or unintended changes, and general backup purposes. Can you guys give me just 1 minute? I think there are postmans at the door. I just have to go grab that stuff. I'll be right back. Give me just 1 minute. Sorry about that. I am back. Monday is my birthday, by the way, my sweet 16 birthday. So I have presents coming in today. So a lot of packages coming in.
Great. Belated birthday wishes, May.
Well, yeah, early. My birthday's on 13th.
Okay.
Monday.
Oh, okay.
Monday's not. That's why we don't have a class on Monday. We move it to Tuesday. I'm not even sure what I'm doing on my birthday yet, but I might go down to Miami to do. I want to do a paragliding. Have anybody done that before? Oh, I love paragliding. If you're not scared of height, paragliding would be good to do. Or skydiving. I love skydiving too.
Okay.
But pretty much you have to pretty much sign your life away, you know, especially with me, because my disability, they're scared to put me on. I'm like, trust me, I would sue you if something happened. Just let me get on. And yeah, because of course there's a lot of restrictions and stuff, especially they're concerned if you can't walk, you know. But anyway, so yep, I am excited for my birthday. I already have like 17 packages to open, so I'm very happy. Well, I have a big family here. We're 9 of us, and I'm the youngest, so I have 5 from my mom. So, all right. I'm sure you're not interested in my birthday presents, but I was so excited, so I have to share that. So here about the security overview. Security is very, very important. It's anything, there's one thing that in Azure you have to be very careful is the security, because a lot of time security is not just getting into just the portal, but every object you have to remember, every object is an individual. So you have to have a security level at the every object level, which means at storage is another object. So you have to make sure you have that at every level. So not just at the, you know, Azure portal level. Within the storage, you wanted to have a storage security, especially depends on what type of data you're going to store in that storage. Because sometimes if you're just storing, you know, archive data and stuff that you're not very important, that's not a problem. But if you are going to store important stuff, and you know you have to think, are you storing sensitive data and stuff, definitely you need to hype up your storage security. Okay, we do shared access signatures. We can configure SAS parameter. We'll look at the SAS portal as well, and storage service encryption. You can also encrypt data now, not only that the data going in and out of the storage, you can also encrypt the data inside the storage, even though the storage sitting in the data sitting in the storage, if you want to keep that encrypted also. Of course, every time think of the, you know, when you're encrypting stuff, you also have to balance the performance. The more data is encrypted and the higher level the data is encrypted. And the encryption, you can start from anywhere from 16-bit encryption to 128-bit encryption. And we talked about that in early classes, that in Azure, everything is using advanced encryption, which is 126-bit encryption. So the higher encryption goes, that means that there are that many bit encrypting, you take a hit on performance. So you got to find a balance that the performance-wise that you can handle, but also it is secured. The more secure, so think of it also as like my house. You know, my house, I have 5 gates before you can get to my front door, right? So there, I have 6 door. So that is going to take longer than if somebody only have 1 door. So the same thing with encryption. The lower encryption you have is similar to say you only have 1 door. The higher encryption you have means that you have the more door. So that it's a little more secure. So that's what we're talking about. We can also create customer managed keys instead of SAS keys, Storage Explorer key, which we'll create some today. I was trying to show this Storage Explorer earlier. That you can see, back to SAS here, let me show, Storage Explorer. So that's why when they're talking about the storage, this is where we're talking. Here's you can get your access keys. No, why Storage Explorer take it off. So access keys, so these are the keys generated by the system. So we always have key and key 1, key 2, just in case that, you need 2 keys if that first key is not working or something. Or you can keep key 1 for you as an administrator and give the key 2 out. And this is your default connection strings. These are your connection strings created to that particular storage. In this case is my storage name is storage demo 1. Now, notice that these little icons next to it, those are document icons, those are copy command. So especially with the key, you do not want to cut and paste. You want to use these storage copy document icon to copy and paste. But these are the keys you have to access to that storage. Okay, so that's what we're talking in the Storage Explorer. So earlier you saw these Storage Explorers, and you can do once you're in each of them. There's a lot of things you can do. We didn't create any blob, right? So anyway, so that's what we'll go in and create some stuff in there that you'll get to do. So storage security is talking more about the encryption services. Authentication, are you going to authenticate with Azure AD, Azure Active Directory? And I'm sure I can't do anything in Active Directory because I'm on the other one because I'm a guest in your site. But here you can see Azure AD, you can create users. So Azure Active Directory is just like Active Directory, and I'm sure you guys heard Active Directory all the time. So what does Active Directory do? Active Directory allows any users it create for users, it authenticate and authorize users. So authenticate things. So Active Directory, when in a Windows Active Directory, I just talk regular Windows Active Directory. If I want to get to, you want to get into your company network, you put a username and password. Okay, so it's going to take the username and password, and it's going to go check in Active Directory. And do you see, okay, that user, okay, May said this is May and this is her password. Is that correct? It's going to check that in the Active Directory domain. In the domain, it's saying the username and password. And say, okay, she has a right username and password. Then it's going to say, okay, May can have access to these servers and what permissions in each one. Those are all, so it's authenticate and authorize, right? That's what Active Directory does. The same thing here in Azure, we have Azure Active Directory. Now, if you have a Windows Active Directory already, you can synchronize it with Azure Active Directory. So some organizations say, okay, we have users that, especially if they're retail company stuff, and say, okay, users that sales people, they can only have access to stuff in the Azure portal only. They do not have to have access to your network servers, so just on-premises servers. So you can create users only on Azure Active Directory. So you can have users that are in Azure Active Directory only, but they are not in the Windows Active Directory on your on-premises. Or you say, no, everybody in my company is going to have Windows Active Directory on-premises, as well as the same people is going to have access in Azure Active Directory. Then you don't even have to create stuff in Azure Active Directory. You can just go to synchronize it. So synchronization goes both ways. It's bi-directional. What I meant by that, if you add a new user in Azure, in Windows Active Directory, Windows is going to ask it, do you want to synchronize it with Azure AD? It will automatically, if you say yes, it will automatically synchronize it. So vice versa, if we add a new user in Azure Active Directory and we synchronize it, we say yes, we want to synchronize it with on-premises Windows Active Directory, it will do that. I don't know it does to any other AD, because there are other Active Directory, Windows Active Directory is what we use for, of course, Microsoft, but there are other organizations have a similar to Windows Active Directory that they use to authenticate and authorize a user. But if you're using any other third-party tool like that on the on-premises, I don't know you can do synchronization with Azure Active Directory. I'm not sure. I've never done that way. All the customers that I have are both, they are using Windows Active Directory and on-premises and using Azure Active Directory, so we can just synchronize it. We only have to create a user in one place, either in Azure AD or in the Windows users AD, so in your regular Windows Active Directory, and you can just synchronize. Or you can also say, well, we have this many users are in my Windows User Active Directory. on premises, but we go to block so and so, they cannot go into Azure portal. They do not have access in Azure AD. So you can do that also. So these are all things to do with permissions and stuff, and most administrators are the ones going to handle it, because here talking about security, I just went and go and talk about that, but really authentication and authorization is is based, that's pretty much the administrator's role. So here we talked about Azure AD. Now also our back is called role-based access control. So you can authenticate people based using Azure AD and role-based. So role-based means that we're going to create all the users that our developers is going to have one role, and you add permission to that role, and you assign that user to that role. That's what role-based access control will do. On a client side, also we can encrypt on the client side, HTTPS using SMB 3.0 for data in transit. So SMB 3.0 is a protocol that we use to move data. So in data transit is still encrypted, is what we're saying. And also you can create Azure disk encryption. If you think that's not enough, you want to make sure that the disk that's storing the data itself, so the data, once you get to the storage, you want it to encrypt it, you can create a disk encryption. And then we're going to create a shared access signature. It's delegated access. You're going to say who can have what permission to that storage. And you have shared key. And you can also encrypt that shared key. Anonymous access to containers and blobs. So we can create shared access signature, shared key, or anonymous access. All right. Normally you give anonymous access if the files that we wanted to share with everybody, like today, labs files that I uploaded, you can just put it into, that. I'm not even doing the slide stuff here, but you can just put it in the container, right? File share container, and you're just going to get anonymous. Anybody can access. So shared access signature SES is delegate access to the resource. It grant access to clients without sharing your storage account key. So we don't want to share the storage account key all the time. So we say, okay, we are creating a key just for the client. The SES delegate access to resources in one of the storage service, blob or queue, table, or file service, and service SES delegate access to a resource in just one of the storage devices, whatever storage services that you're using. So it's a pretty cool stuff to configure SES parameter. We will do this in the lab as well, but so you guys can see how that looks also. You can do it by PowerShell command. As you can see here, we have new AZ storage account SES token. Again, anytime when we see new, that is a command. Dash service, that is a parameter. You cannot change the dash service. You can only change what service you pick here. So if you say blob, file, table, queue, means that you're creating for, decide which one you want. Resource type, is that a service or is it a container or an object? Permission, these are the permission you have. I think read, write, list, the permissions that we saw earlier, and the list of the permission we saw. Guys, remember we saw that list of permissions? Of course, when I'm looking for that here. So read, add, create, write, delete, and list. So it's kind of weird that you can have add, but you cannot create. You can have add, but add and write is two different things. So you can add additional files to it, but you cannot write to the existing files, is what that means. You can delete and you can list. So that is the blob policy. So read, so RAC, so read, add, create, write, WDL, write, delete, and list. So those are the levels that you can set up for permission, what permission you want to give your users. And it's very individual, down to also not just individual users, also individual objects that on the file share level, or you're giving at the blob storage level and all that stuff. And blob level SES full permission. Here's a container name, a blob name, permission, read, write, and delete. So if this is doing it through the PowerShell, if you want to do it through through Azure portal, and the permission, you can see what permission you want. You can have a start and expiration date, what IP addresses you're going to allow protocols. It's hanging key, are we doing key 1 or key 2, and you can generate SAS token and URL. So that's pretty cool stuff you can do. SAS is a side URI that points to one or more storage resources, consists of storage resource URI and SAS token. So if you notice here, so https mycloud.blob.corewindows.net, and say what service, what the properties are, and say the starting date, ending date. Let's go to say what permission you have, what IP address, and HTTPS, it has to be secure. So it includes parameters for the resource URI and storage services version, services, resource type, start time, expiry time. This is what all the parameters we're talking here. Start time, expiration time, resource, which resource group is, what resource it is, what permission you're going to give them, and IP range, what's the IP range you're using. The protocol is HTTPS, and what the signing signature, what is the SAS signature. So that's the parameter. Storage service, if you want to encrypt your storage service, you can protect your data for security and compliance also, especially if you're storing a sensitive data, you have to, and there's a lot of government rules that what type of data that needs to be encrypted, what type of data that you cannot encrypt also. So encrypted through 256-bit. So back, these data from 128 we had upgraded to now 256. The last version Azure we have is 128-bit encryption. It's enabled for all new and existing storage accounts, and it cannot be disabled. So for storage service encryption, we cannot disable it. It's transparent to users as well. All right. If you want to create, instead of SS key, you want to create a customer managed key. So that we wanted to manage our own key. Use your own key, you can do that. Azure Key Vault to manage your encryption keys. So Azure Key Vault is you can store keys into your key vault. So think of it as the key vault is like your safety box, right? If you're like safe box, and you can put stuff in there. So in that same way, in the key vault, we are storing passwords and SAS keys inside in the key vault. And so in order to, you have to have access to the key vault to be able to pull that out, pull that value for the value to, to be able to access your object, either as a blob or a file. So you can create your own encryption key and store them in a key vault, and use Azure Key Vault API to generate encryption keys. The custom keys gives you more flexibility and control. So these keys that we're creating is very similar to certificate authority. And for the longest time, certificate authority is one of the organizations that every company use it for authentication. So for authentication, you don't want to use the same vendor you want to use a different vendor is authenticating the data as above and beyond, and the encryption that Microsoft has. You can use a third party, so custom managed key is, instead of using the certificate authority type of third party vendor to create the keys and connect and stuff, you are creating your own key, and the key that you generated was stored in the key vault. And we also you can store up passwords in the key vault as well, and a password vault. So best practices, always use HTTPS to create or distribute an SAS. We're going to reference stored access policy when possible. We're going to use a near-term expiration times on ad hoc SAS. You have clients automatically renew the SAS if necessary. Be careful with SAS start time, and be specific with the resource that when you create giving access, like I said, because of inheritance, if you want them to, that particular user to have access to only a file share, and you wanted to make sure that you give a specific access only. Understand that your account will be billed for any usage. That's a good thing to be aware of. Validate data written using your SAS. Don't assume SAS has always the correct choice. Use storage analytics to monitor your application to make sure that you have good safety. All right, who's tired of hearing me and we're ready to start the lab? I don't know about you guys, but I think I had enough for hearing myself. So we are going into the lab and we are going to implement and manage storage. I had uploaded that file for you guys as well. So let's try to see if you guys can locate that file. And when they're locating, I know not a lot of you guys have access, maybe not to be able to communicate with me because you're on a phone or you're not on Skype. But in general, for people who can talk to me and who have access to communicate, this is our fit section, right? We did 2 last week and we did 3. So we are about a 1/3 of the way from our 14 sections. Can I get any feedback? What do you guys think? Are you guys learning? You think you're learning? You know more than when we started it? Where do you think that you're going from now, from here? I gave you guys a bunch of different resources yesterday. Do you think that the knowledge you're getting from here is going to be useful in at your job role, whatever environment, whatever job that you're doing, or whatever your job position is? Any feedback? Pradeep, Marhesh or Mahesh?
No problem. Yeah, it will be definitely useful, May. It is definitely useful.
Okay. So are you learning something new that you didn't know before?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. And were you using Portal before you start these sections?
We had used
somewhat
earlier.
Okay.
Yeah, we were creating VMs earlier, but not with the script. We were using the portal itself to create it.
Okay.
But now we learned how to use the scripts.
Okay.
And we have never created storage and all, like this is like new.
Okay, so these are good. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that that we're going the right direction. And what do you think is the pace? I know I can talk very fast. As you guys know, some of you guys will know, for people from India, it should be close to Burma. We speak very fast. So, are we going the right pace? I try to talk slower. So I don't want you guys to be like my husband. My husband's like something, if I tell him my to-do list, he's like, oh, because you were talking too fast, I didn't understand a word, so I didn't do I didn't do it. But if I tell him that he can go play golf, I can tell him 20 miles away. I swear to God, I can say it in my language, and he still got it. He's like, oh, yeah, you already told me that I can golf tomorrow. So don't be like my husband. Make sure that you understand, and feel free to stop me anytime if I say something you don't understand. So, because I know I can, I am very, in nature, I am very enthusiastic person. I'm very hyper. So when I start going fast or start getting, enthusiastic, I can get very excited. I start going fast. So I hope everybody enjoying the class, right? I wanted to know, you can only learn when you're having fun also. I don't want you guys to, or at least that's my rule of thumb. You can't learn if you're not enjoying it, right?
Yeah, we are enjoying me.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so everybody have the files of the document, which is implement and manage storage, which is 100-02, as well as because we got 1 hour. Of course, if the storage is still created, we can leave it on. So that's why I wanted to relate. I went into the storage in detail because storage is very, very important, as well as the VM. In the entire Azure portal, VM and storage, that's the 2 most important things. So if you can get the VM and storage under the belt, that's pretty good, okay? So before we start going to the lab, I wanted to go through the document like we always do. So we are going to need the 2 files, 100.02, Azure Deploy, and 100.02, Azure Deploy.parameters.json. these AZ files are very close, so make sure we pick the right one. We have AZ 100.01, 100.01b, 02b. There's so many of them, very close, so be careful. And the first one is the Azure deploy.json, Azure deploy.prem.json. There's two files, and they have two different information, so make sure that we are going to select the right file. Okay. In this particular scenario, it's saying that Addendum Corporation wants to leverage Azure storage for hosting its data. Okay. Excuse me. So when we're doing this lab, we're going to deploy Azure VM by using Azure Resource Manager template. We are also going to implement and use Azure Blob Storage, and we're going to implement and use Azure File Storage. Because of time limited, we're only doing that 2 out of the 4, the Q and the other. But yesterday I showed you guys the important links in there. You have hands-on labs. Right, on those things, they have the other two, the Q service and stuff. So I highly recommend you guys to go in and explore those in there as well. And like I was saying in the very beginning, this course is going to give you a springboard, springboard platform for you. But to really learn, advanced in Azure and become yourself an expert, you're really going to have to dive deeper and go into those resources, work on it. It's not, nobody's going to become expert in anything in 6 weeks or 5 weeks, right? So I really hope you guys will take advantage of those resources that I provide you. So here we are going to the main test. The first thing, we are going to deploy Azure Resource Manager template. So we'll go into the Azure portal, we go into the subscription blade, and from the subscription blade, we are going to display properties of the subscription. We are going to make sure we are going to select resource provider. This is first time we're going into the subscription blade, guys, okay? So I want to make sure we go in together and we'll go into detail. We cannot afford to miss anything. Under the resource providers, we have, this is important because you have resource providers, not everybody just Microsoft. There's Microsoft.network, Microsoft.compute, Microsoft.storage. Now, if you're seeing something different in your organization, which I don't think you guys are because I think I looked at it, but if you have any third party, there are third party storage also. If you have it, they will show up in that resource provider if you integrate it with Azure. So in this case, we go to C3, and of course, we wanted a Microsoft.storage. And in the portal, we go to create a resource. We're going to go back into that template deployment. When we are creating those template deployment, when we go in, that we are using Azure Resource Manager. That's what we're doing, okay? So Azure Resource Manager, we're going to deploy the custom blade again. We did like last time we did if you guys had a chance to do that, right, we did the template. We are going into upload the file. We're going to go into the edit parameter. We're going to upload the edit parameter. And so these are the files that we had it for us, so we don't have to write these files. But these files are the ones that depends on what you want to do in your organization. Those are the files that you're going to need to go in and tweak it, right? You're going to edit it. Depends on what you want to do. Different operating system you want to install, whatever you want to do. And then we come back from the custom deployment blade. We are going to use that, save the parameter. We go into custom deployment blade. We go in and do the same thing. We're going to update the edit records, all that stuff that we've done before. We define the VM size. We define the VM name, a username, password, the virtual network. Once we have all of that, we don't have to wait for that. We can go in and create the storage. The most important thing we want for you guys to do, and I know Gengar, you asked me about the SSH key. So this is very similar too, but instead of doing SSH, we are doing a shared access signature, the SAS key. So this is also good to know to make sure if you're concerned about security, especially if you're working with clients, your customers, that is very important to make sure that your storage has SAS key. So we will do all that. We're going to create a storage account. We will review the configuration setting in the storage account. We will create a blob storage and a file share. Okay, so that's the two things we're going to do in this lab. Okay, one thing that I want you guys to be careful also when we're going through, again, we're going to go in and do it together. You need to make sure that in the replication that you're choosing the replication they tell us to choose. But some location depend on the location that you choose. If that location does not have that replication LRS, you need to go back and find a location has that. So the locally redundant storage is what LRS stands for. And so we'll make sure we look at that. Allow access. Of course, we're allowing all networks. In a real world, you are going to limit only what network access you want to give that. You don't want to allow all networks. You might have a specific virtual network you wanted to allow, okay? And for this particular one, data lake storage, we are going to hierarchy namespace. We're going to disable it. We are not going to store in a data lake storage. And if you guys have a lot of disparate data, which means unstructured data, so you might want to look to install in the data lake storage instead of a regular storage, okay? And storage account to be provisioned, but we don't have to wait the storage account to be provisioned. So I'm trying to go through this to show you that some important stuff before we actually go in and do it. So here's the important storage account name. Must be between 3 and 24 characters, and it consisting of lowercase letters and digit. No special characters, no uppercase. We all good with that, right? We got that. So location, you have to make sure. We're also creating a region different from the one you choose creating the first storage account. We're going to create a second storage account here. Notice here the replication. So we had LRS, locally redundant storage. This time we are creating so we're going to create two storage accounts. The second one is creating geo-redundant storage, is GRS. So this is geographically redundant storage, but it's not locally redundant. Locally redundant means in the same data center. Geo-redundant means that it is in the geographical location maybe in the same geo replication, but like let's say in East US. In East US, if we have East US and East US 2, so if you're doing geo-redundant storage, it might store a copy in East US and is East US 2. Okay. Transfer required, allow access. We talk about the data lake storage. Then once we have it, we're going to go in and look at the Azure storage account configuration. Azure portal, we're going to go back and navigate into that. So we have, so their LRS is locally redundant, GRS is geographically redundant storage. We also have read access geo-redundant storage, RAGRS. So read access geo-redundant storage is cheaper than a regular GRS. So what that means that people can only read. So that means you can point like your report. If you're going to run a report from a data and you're going to store that data in storage account, you're going to put it in a geo-redundant storage, a read-only, because we don't want them to write, right? Report, we're just going to pull from existing data. Then you wanted to do RAGRS. It's going to be faster, as well as it's cheaper to store it in a read access. Unless you're going to change the data in that storage, you don't want to, of course, you can't do read access, then you can't change it, right? So think of these ahead. We are going to do the encryption, and we're going to test 3. We're going to manage a blob service. So we are going to create a blob account. So when you create a blob account, I wanted to point out something here in the commands. We are going to do the Cloud Shell commands. Now, when we go into the Cloud Shell, you guys been doing it, we've seen it. So the Cloud Shell and PowerShell, there is no in the drop down. You only have Bash Shell and PowerShell. You don't have Cloud Shell. Cloud Shell is by default. So you're just going to select PowerShell, but depends on the command. The shell understand that you're using Cloud Shell or you're using PowerShell. You're with me on that, right? So we need to make sure that. Now, one thing I want to point out here is storage account 1 name. So we're going to get Azure storage account. We already created that storage. It's going to go get that storage account for us. The get means that you're getting it. Always get means that pulling it from the database. Azure portal database. And then we have the resource group name, whatever they tell us to name. But what I wanted you guys to see is 0.storage account name. So this, in that particular resource group, you can have many storage account name. So the storage account name within the resource group are stored as a array. Everybody knows that, right? What array is a list of things. So it's going to be 0.1, 0.2, 0, 1, 2. So let's say in the resource group, if we have 5 storage account name, array is always start from 0. So it's going to be 0. It's going to be, storage account 1. Resource group array 1. Item 1 is going to be storage account 2. 3, 4, so far, so forth. So this is the array. So make sure that we are, you understand that array, because not for this demo only, but if you go out and start doing, you need to know that what array that storage account is if you wanted to access that particular storage account. So anyway, so we are going, and they are setting up variables for that, and we are creating here. So we have storage account 1 name and account 2 name. And then we are going to create storage account key 1. And for a account 1, we created storage account key 1. For account 2, we are creating storage account 2 key 1. Okay, so we have 2 keys we created for each storage. All right. So I want to make sure that we are understanding the array step. And then now what we're doing, we're going to copy the Azure -- source, HTTPS storage account name, blah, blah, blah. Now, because this is as a command we're going to copy, because it is going through crossing a page here, we need to make sure that they're all in one page. Copy it in a notepad and do that. Sometimes these command comes in this -- Every parameter is -- If you have the -- like what we see here, if we copy it just like this, and some of them might work, but yesterday we find out that these -- doesn't come in right. So be careful that with the -- So we are copying from a source storage account 1B name to a storage account 2 name. The destination is storage account 2. Source is storage account 1. Okay, and notice that what we are doing here, we are going to use storage account key 1 for the source. Destination is storage account 2 key 1. We are include all the AZ, and we're doing AZ, and that's AZ command synchronize copy recursive. Means that you can copy from both 1 to 2 and 2 to 1. Utility copy the content container between the 2 storage accounts. Okay. So we copy one from the other, verify that command, return the result, go back and look in the blob to make sure that container exists. Includes 2 copy blobs, and then we are going to use a shared access key to access that blob. So we're going to make sure that shared access key works. Make sure that permission, we have permission read, start date, expiration date, and we are going to go into SCS URL, and the next one is going to create Azure file storage. Now, because of time, I'm looking, it's all because I know I'm kind of a little bit confused, and I know you guys have different team. Is all of you guys, I know some of you guys have something going on that you're not going to be here. Is that right? And because I know we change topics. So for the 14th, if all of you guys coming back for the 14th, okay, so if we don't finish the whole thing, at least I want to finish till before we get to the file share. We might do the file share on the 14th if we don't get that all done today. So if you're not one of those individuals not coming on the 14th, 15th, 16th, the week of that, you can try to do it on your own. Or if you get stuck, you know my email. I hope everybody know my email, right? Feel free to reach out to me and say, hey, mate, I wasn't able to attend the 14th session, on May 14th session, and, I'm trying to do the file share service. I got stuck here at this or that, or any questions you have, or just want to call and say hi to me, that's fine. But make sure, so make sure that you do, you get to do both, all right? So all that said, because we might do the file share next time, so let's do the blob first, and if we have time, I will go in and talk about the file share first, and then we'll do the lab. I'm trying to do the explanation first and when to go through the lab, so that will hopefully avoid, easier, and we don't run into any issues. So that's what I'm hoping. So I don't know if that helpful going through the lab in detail before we do the lab is, you guys can tell me, but I'm thinking that will hopefully help us not having too much errors. Is that kind of helpful going through the lab document? Pradeep, Maharsh, what do you think?
Yes, May.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because it's not, it's the first time you do it. It's not easy. It's always a little bit confusing. And of course, we're doing remote also. So I want to make sure we know what we're going to do, that, have that confident to build before we go in and do it. So now let's all go into go back into the portal. Now in the Azure portal, so we are going into all services in the portal. And the all services, so on the portal, on the menu bar, you have all services. So let's go into the all services. Under the general tab, you should see subscription. On the left is the menu bar, within the all services. Select the subscription. And we'll go into that subscription. And make sure you pick the right subscription you want to go into. So from here, so make sure that we are all in the subscription portal. So I'm going, making sure that we're looking at this also. Navigate to the Blade display properties of your Azure subscription. Okay, I'm sorry. No, I think I went to it's not what I want to go. I don't see property. Okay, you can go to properties here. No, okay, give me 1 second. I don't think we need to be in that. Okay, and the subscription. And the Blade. And when we go into properties under the setting, so we have what am I thinking here? Blade display properties of your subscription. We need to navigate to a resource provider's Blade. So, okay, I think I'm still not from here. I think we're missing a step here, though.
There is a resource provider Blade in this menu.
I'm sorry?
There is a resource provider Blade in this menu.
Yeah, we have a properties. So I don't think we need to go into property. So we need to go into the resource provider here, like they were saying, right? Because it doesn't make sense going to properties not showing properties of your subscription. So I think we just need to go into the resource provider here. And so I just want to make sure that so make sure you make a note You don't want to be looking for property like me, I was saying. And the interesting thing is that every time you go into Azure, as you know, things changes. This resource provider in previous ones, you can go in from here. There is a resource provider tab. We don't have that anymore. So don't ask me, they switch things around, right? So now resource provider is under the settings. So if you want to do that on your own, when you go back and do it later, make sure you make a note that that has changed. So in the resource provider here, notice that these are registered. I think these are already registered, so do not click on that. But what we're looking for, Azure subscription, we are looking, you are going to look for Microsoft.network, Microsoft.compute, Microsoft.storage. We want to make sure that 3 is showing registered. I'm pretty sure that's already registered. If not registered, we need to go register. So Microsoft. You guys see that, right? That 3 is registered. Microsoft.network. So Microsoft.network is registered. You guys able to locate it, right? Microsoft.compute. The most important thing is Microsoft.storage need to be registered. Okay, in this list, we've got all 3 registered. I'm pretty sure you guys have the same as me, right? Are they all 3 registered? Oh, well, you guys are different, so I'm not sure. Prakash, is that all 3 registered?
Yeah, we are registered.
Okay, all right. So, but what I want you to show is that see all these other services. These are also, if you go to use, Microsoft AAD, you can go register, and network guys, developer guys will know that if they're going to use that. If you want to use also for developers, if you want to use Microsoft Azure Stack, you have to come and register. What that means is every single thing you register will cost you money. So make sure if you want to do Microsoft Batch API, if you're going to have some of your app is going to use Microsoft Bing Maps, you need to register. So these are all the different services that your subscription have, but unless you register, you're not getting charged. You with me on that, right? So these are all the different services. If you want to send grid email, all the other services. So you might want to look at those to add Microsoft Visual Studio is not registered. All right. So if you're going to use any of these services, you must come in and register here first. Okay. So that's what we're doing. Now so this is just to show where the services are and make sure they are registered. Now we are going back to the portal, create a resource blade. Okay, in that resource blade, we are going to use that template deployment again, guys. Template deployment. We did template deployment earlier too, right? So in the template deployment, when we get in the new blade, we type in template deployment, it comes up, we click on it. We are in the template deployment plate. We are going to click the blue create button. Of course, we are going to go in and build your own template. So build under the template deployment, custom deployment, you're going to select build your own template in the editor. The same thing we did earlier. All right, now it's important. We got to make sure we we're going to load the right file. Everybody with me in the edit template, right? In the edit template, we're going to load the file. Make sure we load the right file. We need to be might need to be 102. Okay, 101.02. Okay, for some reason, I don't have stuff in 101.02. I put it in there. Oh, I had it earlier. I didn't give it to you guys. Okay, is that in the lab files now? Lab files here. Okay. Now we are going into 100 100.02 deploy JSON file. Azure deploy JSON file 100.02. And we're going to upload that 100.02 Azure deploy JSON. I'm sure you guys already find it before me. Here, the content version is 1, virtual machine size. We are naming our virtual machine default value. We can override this, so no worry. 2.1 VM1, the VM name, admin username, admin password. Earlier we saw I override that one, the VNet 1. Now, what we're looking here, you wanted to go and see what operating system we're going to use. We're using Microsoft Windows Server 2016 Data Center. You see that, right? In the storage profile, it tells us that we are installing 2016 Data Center. Everybody okay with that? You see that? Make sure you can see that. I just want you guys to know how to look at that, so that way, if you wanted to install a different operating system, you can use the same script. You just need to go in and modify the SKU to what image you want to install. Everybody good with me on that, right? Once you get that, we are going to select Save. Now, we are going into the edit parameter, which is the middle button there, edit parameter. And this time we are going to load the we're going to load the AZ100.02 Azure deploy.parameters. Select that one, make sure it is 100.02 Azure deploy parameters. Okay, so we have open the parameter file. It is telling what the admin name, username is. It is pointing to the schema to that deployment parameters JSON file, and we are going to click Save. We didn't do any changes. We just look at it. We just upload it. We save it. Now we are in the customer deployment plate again, and here we are going to set the following settings. Subscription, we only have one. We're going to keep. Resource group, we can select create new. We are saying AZ101201RG. And if you're like me, you can just copy and paste. I just copy and paste it to make sure it's not going to have a problem. 100.201 minus amp.rg. I'm going to say OK there. Okay, location. It's at West US. I'm just going to leave the West location for now. West. Okay, we leave the standard the same, the VM name, 2.1, VM1 within that resource group. I'm not changing anything. I am going to change the username password. That's just me. I just want to use the same for all of them so I don't drive myself crazy. That's maybe a little too late, but we'll stay with that. Now, at the bottom, make sure that you select agree to the terms and conditions before you click purchase. All right, so what we did is we create a new resource group. We put it in the different locations. Whatever location you put it in, I put it West US. I left to the VM size, the VM name. This I just add M because I already have the other one. And you can, I changed the username and password. You don't have to. Let's go ahead and click purchase. I'm on everything. 100.201 MVNet. Okay. All right. That is going. All right. So we had create the first one. First template. So now we do not wait for that. So by Azure Regions, when you can provision Azure VM, so make sure that we put the right one. Do not wait for the deployment, which we won't. We'll come back and see this to work. Complete the exercise. You have initiated a template deployment for AZ21. Let's look at that to make sure. Now we are going to go implement and use a blob storage, okay? So in the exercise 2, we're going into test 1. We are going, now we can create a storage from here as well, but they want us to go in from create a storage here. So we'll go in the create a resource, and in the create a resource blade, we are going to type in storage account. I type in storage account. You don't have to. The storage is right here anyway. And we are going to select the storage account. Okay, so everybody with me on that, right? So we just turn on the storage account. We are going to leave the subscription that we want. The only subscription we have, or at least I only have one subscription of this one. So we are going to name this AZ1002RG. So we are creating a new resource group for the storage. Just like create new AZ, I am going to do MRG, okay. Okay, storage account name. Account name has to be between 3 and 24 characters, consisting of lowercase letters and digit only. You cannot have uppercase. They didn't tell us what to name, so make sure you name whatever you think is appropriate for you. So, let's see, 100201 M. Storage. Scourge. Okay. Now, location is region where you selected. Location name of the Azure region which you selected in the previous task. So we are, I think mine was West US though, location. Because this is the first storage account we're creating, so okay. And West US, I'm going to create. Performance, we're going to leave standard. Of course, you know, premium is going to cost you more. Account kind, notice that we have 3 options. We saw that. Blob storage version 1 and 2. We're just going to leave 2. Okay, replication. Now that's important here. This one, we are saying that it's going to be locally redundant storage. Okay, so notice that you have locally redundant, geo-redundant, and read access geo-redundant. So we're going to select locally redundant storage. Azure tier, we're going to leave cool and hot. So just hot as default. I'm going to leave default. Go to the advanced tab, or you can select next advanced. Go to the advanced tab. We need to make sure secure transfer required is disabled. We're not going to enable it for now. We're going to do secure transfer requires disable. Virtual network, make sure is all network. Data lake storage 2 and data protection, both of them are disabled. We're not enabling because if we enable it, that means that it is going to encrypt and it's going to take us longer, so we're not going to do that, okay? So, but in your real world, you're going to decide you want to enable it or not, all right? And we are going to select review and create. So, let's see, validation passed. A validation passed, mine came back. I'm going to select create. All right, so we can go back and look at, did your I'm looking in the notification. My first one came by the Microsoft template came back. That's done. Now it is creating a storage. Was everybody able to at least click create? And we're moving on to the next step. Everybody able to, no problem with the storage, right? It's provisioning now. I hope. Maharsh, Pradeep, were you guys able to click the create in the storage? Anybody?
I'm still in process.
Okay, but at least it's creating the right. Mine's not done yet either. Okay, but it's still in provision. But now we're going to go in and create second storage account. So I want to make sure that we know this is the second storage we're going to create. We have one storage account going on. We are going to create a second storage, and this second storage we create is going to be in a different region, because we're going to move a blob data, from blob container from one storage to another. That's the test, okay? So we are going to go back and create a storage again, but this is our second storage. In this storage, make sure that we are going to select a different location from the first storage, okay? So now let's go back into create a resource, go into storage, click a storage account. Okay. Okay, they are also making us create a new storage account. If you're going through the document with me here, we're here, resource group, new resource group name, AZ100203-RG. So that's create new, and we're going to put that, I'm just going to put M for me, because I didn't say that. Okay, and then we are going to choose a storage account name. So I wanted to, for myself, I want to make sure that this is the storage account 2. We already have one storage. This is the second storage we're creating that we wanted to move to, though. So this is my storage account 2M. What did I name the other one? AZ21M storage. Okay, so I named that. Hold on. I normally put the resource group name, then 2 or 3 storage 2. All right. So that is my second storage name. Okay, and remember the location, you have to choose a different location. So the first storage I created in West US. So this one, I'm going to create it in East US. You know what? I'm going to create it in Central US just to stay on the safe side. So I'm going to create Central US. We are going to leave a standard premium as performance is standard. Storage fee 2, we keep the same. Now, the replication is different, guys, so make sure we change that. The replication is going to be GRS, which is geo redundant storage. The first one we created is locally redundant. This one we created is replication is geo redundant. And we're going to leave the access tier to be hot. And we're going to the Advanced tab. Advanced tab, we are going to see storage transfer required, disable, security. You're going to tie it up in security more, but for the test, for the lab here, we're not doing that. Virtual network, make sure we select all network. Data lake storage and the blob, both of them are disabled. And now we are going to review and create.
Hey man, I created the first storage account as geo-redundant replication enabled. So is there, can I create this one as locally redundant one? Second one?
What you create the other one as what?
The geo-redundant.
Oh, you did geo redundant on the other one. So this one you want to do locally redundant then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I do that?
Yeah, that should be fine. Just so we just remember, you're just gonna have to do backward. Why did you do that anyway?
No,
Oh, you wanted to test it something or?
yeah, no, I was just not paying attention to that particular.
Yeah, I mean, I know it. These are hard. Hopefully you guys don't get because also if you only have one monitor, I can imagine how you're doing because I have 3 monitors. Even that, because you're looking at the document, you're looking at my screen, you're looking at your lab screen, so it's hard. It's easier if you have 2 or 3 monitors though.
Yeah.
I give you guys credit for doing that. I couldn't do it. It would drive me crazy. I'm already crazy to begin with anyway, but that's a whole another story. So that's creating. So I'm going to give it a couple. Let that create. So, okay. I'm giving a couple minutes to make sure everybody has both of them are created. Okay. I'm going to dismiss all. I got too many in there. So once both of the storage accounts are created, we are test 2. At test 2, we're going to go in and review our first storage account. So I'm just in the main menu bar. You can just click on storage account. You should see all your storage account and pick the resource group that you created. The first storage account. So we're going to open that first storage, and I'm looking my first storage is 100201. Okay, the 1021. That's my first storage. So go click open the first storage that you have. So notice that, make sure that your replication is locally redundant, your account kind, so we know that's the performance, access tiers hot. So that's what we choose. We also choose it's also show what location you're in. So they just want us to look around here. And in the settings, we are in the first storage. We are in this first storage we created in the overview blade. In that overview blade, in the settings, you should see access key. So when you select that access key, so here we have, like I say, we have key, we have connection, and we have 2 key with your storage account name. So that's a key, and that connection string is what you need to connect to your storage. Keep in mind, storage is a separate object, right? So you can see all this stuff. Now we can also go into I don't know why I got myself out of here, sorry. In the storage, under the settings, after the access key, you can go in and select the configuration. So the configuration plate, you notice that it tells you, so this is where you can go in and change the replication if you want in here as well. So, so make sure that are looking good. You can also display the encryption plate. So we're just showing you all the things and the parameters things here. So display the encryption configuration plate. You can see what storage services you have, all that good stuff. Okay. So this is just to see what everything that, we're just double checking what we created is actually been, deployed. And we're happy with that. Then we are going to go to, so that's where we just display configuration plate, just looking at the stuff, making sure that the storage account is created. Okay, display the encryption, we look at that. So we are going to go back to the second storage account. The same thing, you're just looking through the second storage account to make sure that what we selected was created. Okay, and so I'm just going to assume it is created and we're happy with it. We are going to test 3. We need to go and manage Azure Storage Plop service. Okay. So we go back into the Azure portal, go into the first storage account. So I'm still in the first storage account. So we are in the first Azure storage account, whatever you created. Back to the overview blade. So you see 1201 storage. That was my storage account name. In that storage account, under the blob services, which pass in the middle, after you pass the settings, you should see blob services, and we are going to select blobs. Everybody are in your blob service, blob blade, So we are going to create a new container. So you're going to see plus container. So let's select the plus container. So it's saying that, okay, we are create a new container name, AZ1002 container. But this is, we are creating in the first blade. Okay, in the first storage account. So we click new container. We're going to enter the new container name. I'm going to add M for my container name. Now access, we are going to make sure we're going to leave private, no anonymous access, which means, hey, we're not giving everybody yet. I'm still working on it. I don't want to share mine with anybody yet, is what I'm saying. So, okay, I have my container in. I'm going to click OK. Your container should come up right away. So we are going, once the container, notice that what you wanted to make sure is the lease state is available. So it tells you in the containers, it tells you your last modified, the public accessed, and lease state. Make sure that your lease state is available. Now we are going to open up that container. Now we're going to upload. We're going to upload a couple files again, so you guys know we know what we're going to update, right? So in the upload, so I'm showing the document also to make sure. So we are going to upload AZ102 Azure deploy.json and 102 Azure deploy parameters.json. We're going to upload that file into the container. So when you are in the container, you can have the upload command on the top, on the left. So we're going to select upload files. So go find your files and the file directory is the 102 Azure deploy. All right. And click upload. Okay, and now we are going to go bring another file. This time we are bringing that 102 Azure deploy parameter JSON. And we are going to upload that again. So now we have 2 files in our container. Everybody, we're good. In our first container, in our first storage, our first container, you have 2 files. Do we have 2 files, everybody? Uploaded to your first container, right? Okay, now this is the little bit challenging part because now we are going into PowerShell. Once we have this done, we are going into the Cloud Shell. Make sure it is saying PowerShell. So wait for the PowerShell to come up. Okay, thanks, Jeff. Thanks for letting me know. All right, so we are going to continue here, and we are going to run that statement in test 4, which is a storage account name, blah, blah, blah. Account 1 name, so make sure. I'm gonna try to be brave and run it the way it is instead of putting in the Notepad. See, okay, it works, so that's good. So we are running the first storage account name variable, storage account 1 name. Then you're going to run storage account 2 name. So you are running for statement in the Cloud Shell. Okay, that didn't like that one. Okay, I know why. Mine, I don't have. Okay, I know why mine is, because my resource group names are different. So, 1, 2, 3, mine, I just add M. That's my storage account name. 2 name, 2, 3, M. Okay, next one. Account, now, I need to go back to storage account 1 name. Let me go back to, okay, now I am going to go back and change it because, okay, my storage account 1 name is 202 RG, so mine needs to be 202 MRG. Yeah, I know. Go back. I'm going to reopen my PowerShell. Okay, make sure you run that for statement. You need to change names accordingly, then go ahead and do. Make sure you're pointing to the right resource group name. I screwed up mine, so I had to go back and do that. So create both 2 parameters with storage account 1 name and account 2 name. And then we're going to create account 1 key and account 2 key. So once that for statement is created, and now I'm creating the storage account 2 key 1. Okay, we have storage account 1 name, 2 name, storage account key 1, storage account 1 key 1, account 2 key 1. So we run for statement. Everybody able to run it successfully? Once you got that for statement, make sure it is important that for statement run. Okay, and now we are going to do the AZ copy command, which is a next statement down here. If you're looking at the document here, this is the Cloud Shell copy command. So we have AZ copy store container destination. Oh, sorry, copy that command. So what we're doing, we are copying this container. We have it in our first storage. we're going to copy it to the second storage. What if you can copy it? That means that now we are showing how to replicate. So now you replicate your container in storage storage 1 to a storage 2. So that's what we're doing. Okay, just make sure I don't need to change anything. Okay, I do need to change my containers needs to have M. I believe it's 2M, and I have E22M, and I create. Oh, you know what? We don't have a container in storage account 2. So before we do this, before we run that statement, if you run it, you should get an error, right? It didn't create that because we need to have a storage account container in the storage account 2. So I would go back into the storage account, go look in storage 2, 1203 M storage 2. Go back to our second storage. And in the second storage, go into the blobs. We need to create a container for us. So the container name for that 203 should be AZ1302M container. Everybody with me on that? 203, 1302. 302 dash container. And create public access. No anonymous access. I would think that needs to be anonymous. No. Okay. So everybody was able to hear what I was saying, right? In the storage 2, you have to go in and create the account. Create the container in storage 2, and then you go to run that statement that was here in the cloud shell, the AZ copy command. So you cannot run that AZ copy command if you don't have the container in the storage 2. So you're going to go into storage 2 and create a container called 1302-container. Everybody able to create that? Able to run the AZ command, create the container, and run that AZ command? I want to make sure at least you get that far and go back into your, now if you open that storage, it should have, where my files are. It said transfer to file. Storage account 2, okay. It said move two files. It moved to is the her to name. It should be count to name 203 MRG. That's interesting. It said it's completed and shows that we copied two files. All right, guys, it's 10:30, so I will have to let you guys go. All right, but so we will continue the test 5 from this thing on Tuesday the 14th. Okay,